Reconvene our meeting now at 6:02. Thanks to technology, we can be very precise. And welcome everyone to the February 11th Escondido Union High School Board meeting. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to establish a quorum. And one of the things that's important about this tonight is that David Vincent is overseas. And David, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. All right, so we're going to establish a quorum, and Christy Knight, are you here?
Present.
And Bill Durney?
Present.
Ryan Williams?
Here.
And David Vincent?
Present.
Thank you. All right, so then we also have the mission and vision, and so ladies, let's see, Cadence, as you have the vision or the mission? Okay.
Mission: empowering every student to graduate prepared for college, career, and life through excellence in learning.
Vision: relentlessly pursue with optimism equitable support for all students to navigate a changing world by providing rigorous and relevant learning experiences that strengthen their capacity as open-minded and invested collaborators, effective and thoughtful communicators, resourceful and creative problem solvers, curious and analytical critical thinkers, and informed and compassionate community members.
Thank you, and welcome back. We missed you last month. All right, so now we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance led by Bill Durney.
Everyone please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now we have the inspirational student recognition by Mrs. Stacy Adame. Thank you. And she's principal of the Escondido Adult School.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Bob Weller, members of the board, Superintendent Peterson, and members of the cabinet. It is my pleasure to introduce you to a truly remarkable student, Manuela Costa. Manuela is a dedicated student who works full-time while pursuing her educational goals. She's excelling in our advanced ESL class and has recently completed our basic caregiver program, which prepares students for a career in healthcare. This program is team taught by our resident RN, Nellie Waldron, and our advanced ESL teacher, Justin Williams. It is designed for students who are in intermediate and advanced ESL, like Manuela, who want to pursue a career in healthcare. The course provides comprehensive training that extends beyond medical skills, equipping students with essential professional tools, as well as language support. Students learn job-specific terminology, engage in hands-on caregiver competencies, and develop critical workforce skills, including resume writing and interview preparation. Near the end of the course, students are invited to participate in interviews at our site with employers who are looking to hire caregivers, and many of our students are hired as soon as they complete this unique course. Despite facing numerous challenges, Manuela's determination and resilience have been remarkable. Her story is a testament to the power of perseverance, demonstrating that with dedication and hard work, it is possible to overcome obstacles and build a promising future. Manuela is an inspiration to all of us at Escondido Adult School, and we are proud to present her as our Inspirational Student of the Month. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to Manuela's ESL and Basic Caregiver instructor, Mr. Justin Williams. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Stacy. So I'll speak a little more, reiterate some of that. So I can't speak highly enough about the dedication of our Escondido adult students and what they have. They often juggle many things, including taking care of their family, kids, coordinating with their spouses, all while furthering their education. It can easily be taken for granted the perseverance one needs to maintain this busy schedule, all while usually having to adjust to a new environment. One of these dedicated students that we're highlighting is a woman that works full-time, all while participating in multiple programs at our school. She's not only a student in our advanced ESL class, as Stacy said, where she's perfecting her English skills, she's learning valuable skills to assimilate in our community, but she's also just our caregiving program, as Stacy has alluded to, is designed to provide an entry-level position into the world of providing assistance to those in need. This may entail helping the elderly with certain physical needs. It also may be providing assistance to people with a type of dementia, aiding them with all their daily tasks. Our class prepares the students to work with their clients at their home or in a facility. This is an excellent opportunity for them to learn valuable skills that may lead to becoming a nurse assistant, an RN, or even a phlebotomy technician. With the expertise of the RN, the class is taught together to provide all the necessary professional skills and communication to help students prepare for their new career. I can't speak highly enough about this month's Student of the Month and her excellent work ethic. For this reason, I'm very proud to honor Manuela Costa.
Good evening. Today is a very special day for me. It is a moment to look back and see how much I have grown in the past year. Studying English has a big challenge, but also a great opportunity to learn and improve. Every class, every new word, and every conversation helped me get better and feel more confident. Finished the caregiving course has also have important, and I learned how to take care of others with responsibility, kindness, and this dedication. This gave me not only a new job, but also a new purpose. Helping people is one of the best things we can do. Thank you so much.
Manuela, help me pronounce your name correctly. Manuela, okay. I'll be right up and I'll give you all these plaques. This one is from the City of Escondido, from Mayor White. Thank you. The first one is from the City of Escondido, from Mayor White, giving you certificate of recognition. The second one is from Jim Desmond's office from the County of Escondido. And then the final one is from the school board here that we're giving you a certificate of recognition. Also, just to let you know, what I do for a living, I work with a lot of home care people. So I know what you do when you're working, trying to help people with dementia and home care and things like that. So it's a great field. You really do a lot of good work. So I'm very proud to be able to give you these. And so congratulations.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right, we will now report on action taken in closed session by Christy Knight.
Thank you, President Weller. This evening in closed session, the report of action taken in closed session for Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. In closed session, on motion of Board Member Williams, seconded by Board Member Knight, the Board of Education voted to approve physical education waiver cases number 498 to 662 for the 2024-2025 school year by a roll call vote as follows. Approval by Bill Durney, Ryan Williams, Christy Knight, David Vincent, and Bob Weller. 0 dissenting, 0 abstaining, and 0 absent. Additionally, in closed session on motion of Board Member Durney, seconded by Board Member Williams, the Board of Education voted to approve graduation waivers case numbers 28 through 35 for the 2024-2025 school year by a roll call vote as follows. Approval by Ryan Williams, Christy Knight, Bob Weller, Bill Durney, and David Vincent with 0 dissenting, 0 abstaining, and 0 absent. And that would conclude the report of action taken in closed session. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Knight. We move on to item number C6 now, which is the approval of board meeting minutes. And two things on that before we do that. I want to repeat that David Vincent is out of the country, so therefore all action taken during this teleconference meeting shall be by roll call vote. So we'll be going down the line and calling out, but do I need a motion for this? Okay, can I get a motion for the approval of the board meeting minutes for January?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. With that said, we'll start down at the end and we'll go with Alondra. How do you vote?
Aye.
And Cadence?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Sorry, Christy Knight?
Oh, go ahead, David.
Yeah, he said aye, yeah. Bill Durney?
Aye.
Ryan Williams?
Aye.
And I, Bob Weller. All right, so that passes the approval of the board minutes. And now we'll do the approval of the Public Facilities Corporation annual meeting minutes from January 14th. And if anybody wants to make a comment on that, do we want to move to vote first or make comment first? Yes. Okay. Okay.
Make a motion to approve the Public Facilities Corporation annual meeting minutes of January 14th, 2025.
Second.
Very good. Does anybody have any discussion on that presentation from January 14th? Other than I was impressed, so great job. All right, so let's vote. And so we'll start with Alondra. How do you vote?
Aye.
And Cadence?
Aye.
David Vincent?
Aye.
Thank you, Christy Knight.
Aye.
Bill Durney?
Aye.
Ryan Williams?
Aye.
And myself, Bob Weller, is an aye. So that also passes. And we have another one here for the approval of the board workshop minutes of February 4th. And can I get a second or a motion and a second on that, please?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay, thank you. And are there any comments before we vote? I did want to say that I thought the board workshop was excellent and that I feel like we accomplished quite a bit. So thank you for all that were involved with that. So I will start the voting. And so we'll start with Alondra, please.
Aye.
And Cadence?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Christy Knight?
Aye.
Bill Durney?
Aye.
Ryan Williams?
Aye.
And myself, Bob Weller. All right, that all passes. So let me scroll down to the next agenda item here, which is going to be C9, which is the approval of the agenda for tonight. And can I get a motion and a second on that, please?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections on that?
No, there are not.
There are not. So I'm going to call for the roll call vote, and please vote aye or nay. And so student board members, Alondra,
Aye.
Cadence,
Aye.
David Vincent,
Aye.
Christy Knight,
Aye.
Bill Durney,
Aye.
Ryan Williams,
Aye.
and myself are an aye. All right. And then next we have consent items, which are items on the consent calendar are considered routine and are approved with a single motion. The board, staff, or members of the community may ask that items be taken off the consent calendar in order to make comments or ask questions. So before we discuss any of that, can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I will move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
And a second. David, did you have any questions?
None.
No questions. John, question. If there's a question within the consent calendar item, when we're in that section, should we ask it or do we ask it now?
You would ask it now.
Okay. For tonight, we'll just go with the consent. All right. So again, I'm going to go ask for a roll call vote. So please vote aye or nay. First, student board members, Alondra.
Aye.
Thank you. And Candace.
Aye.
Cadence. And now for the elected board members, David Vincent,
Aye.
Christy Knight,
Aye.
Bill Durney,
Aye.
Ryan Williams,
Aye.
and myself, Bob Weller, is an aye. So that takes us into section D1, student and staff recognition by Superintendent John Peterson.
Good evening and welcome, everyone. Tonight, I'd like to share that The Voice of San Diego recently shared an article naming Escondido High School, San Pasqual High School, and Valley High School as part of only 13% of San Diego County schools that had higher English and math test scores last year than they did during the 18-19 school year prior to the pandemic. Congratulations to all three schools. From Orange Glen
Well
High
done.
School, congratulations to the Torch Yearbook staff at Orange Glen High School for winning the 2025 Journalism Education Association Diversity Award. Alondra Perez Lachino, Elizabeth Gudino, Amy Ledesma Gonzalez, and advisor Jessica Young, MJE, are celebrated for having created a culture of creativity, compassion, and inclusion. Their multilingual coverage and dedication to representation ensure that every student's story is heard. 6 culinary students from Orange Glen High School recently participated in the Region 10 FCCLA culinary competition. And on February 1st, 6 culinary students from Orange Glen went to La Quinta High School and participated in the Region 10 Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America's culinary competition. Out of 49 competitors from 11 different schools, Orange Glen took first and second place. Moving on to San Pasqual High School, the San Pasqual High School livestock team earned first place High Team Award at the Hemet Field Day. Congratulations. And congratulations to San Pasqual senior Alice Kuznetov for earning the National Honorable Mention Aspirations Award, and to senior Elena Nguyen, who is a regional award winner from the National Center for Women in Technology. The National Center for Women in Technology Aspirations in Computing High School Award honors 9th to 12th grade students with barriers to participation in technology for their computing-related achievements and interests, and encourages them to pursue their passions. Award recipients are selected based on their aptitude and aspirations in technology and computing, as demonstrated by their computing experience, computing-related activities, leadership experience, tenacity in the face of barriers to access, and their future plans. Thank you very much for allowing me to recognize some staff and students.
Thank you, Superintendent. It's always awesome when we hear of the success results of the students. It's really good to see. So now we move on to item D2, student board member reports, and we'll begin with Alondra Pena.
Good afternoon, members of the board and everyone else who decided to join us this evening. I will be updating you on several sites, reasons, and upcoming events. Starting strong with Delago Academy. On January 14, Delago Academy hosted a winter festival where clubs provided fun activities and snacks. During the month of January, there were rowdy crowds for the boys and girls basketball team as well as at the food fair on the last day of January. On the last Wednesday of January, there was a pep rally with a Frozen theme. During the first week of February, we celebrated Counselors Appreciation Week, which included a honey roast where the students make a sweet comments to the counselors as an activity. This week, ASB is selling singing grams during lunch where students can pay ASB to sing to a special someone for Valentine's Day. This Thursday, the 13th, it is senior night for the boys soccer and boys and girls basketball team. Go Firebirds! To end the report for Delago, on the 21st, they will have a club brush during lunch. Moving on to Escondido High School. Escondido High School and San Pascual High School are having a friendly fundraising competition with canes from Sunday, February 9th to Tuesday, the 11th, with me today. On the 12th, there will be an 8th grade night. Prom tickets will be going on sale starting February 21st. And now for Escondido Adult School. Escondido Adult School recently participated in an outreach event at Mira Costa College to inform the public about services available with a focus on ESL classes. Thank you. This is the end of my report.
Thank you so much. And now we will do it. Cadence Forby will present.
Good evening, board members, faculty, staff, and community members. I'm excited to share an update on activities, achievements, and events happening across our high schools in this district, and I'll start with San Pascual. On January 31st, San Pascual hosted a Hunger Games movie night and carnival, bringing students together for an exciting evening of games, food, and entertainment. Today, they will be hosting a college and career fair hosted by Avid, and it will take place providing students insight into future educational and career opportunities. Tomorrow, San Pascual has a very busy day featuring both the Spirit and Pride Awards and recognizing students for their leadership and school spirit, and 8th grade parent night where incoming freshmen and their families will learn more about the high school experience. And on February 28th, seniors will take their senior panoramic picture, which is marking a memorable part of the graduating class. Now moving on to Valley High School. Tomorrow they're hosting a basketball tournament that will take place, and during lunch they'll be hosting U.S. Army table setup. On February 20th, students will give back to the community by volunteering at the San Diego Food Pantry. On February 21st, a group of students will attend Wicked on Broadway. And from the 24th to the 28th, Valley will host a suicide prevention week. And finally, let's move on to Orange Glen High School, where on February 4th and 5th, middle school elective visit will take place, giving future students a chance to explore OG's elective options. And on February 12th, OG will host a blood drive in the small gym, encouraging students and staff to donate and contribute to life-saving causes. That's the end of my report, and thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies, very much for that. I was going to make a comment about the Hunger Games event, but I'll just let that go. So now we're going to move on to recognition presentations. Item number 3, which is a career technical education presentation by Mia Funk. Every February, the Career Technical CTE community celebrates CTE Month to raise awareness of the role that CTE has in preparing our students for careers and college. In the spirit of CTE Month, the College and Career Readiness Department will present CTE highlights. And I get to say that Mia Funk is one of my favorite here, and she does such a great job. So we're so excited to see you here. So take it away.
Thank you. Esteemed School Board and Cabinet, thank you for allowing us to provide updates on Escondido Union High School District's career and technical education programs.
For organizational, do we have people present over on the gray podium now, or does it matter?
But
Okay.
the middle is fine.
Whichever one you wish.
All right, I think I'll stay put. Career technical education is an educational strategy that equips students with academic, technical, and employability skills needed to succeed in the secondary, workforce, and lifelong learning. It combines classroom instruction with to prepare students for high-demand careers across various industries. 40.5% of Escondido students are enrolled in a CTE course last school year. This is a 3.4% increase in enrollment compared to the year before. CTE enrollment is a goal area in our local accountability plan, which will be reviewed in future meetings.
Do you mind if I ask a question regarding the increase? Can you relate that to any particular?
Hey, David.
Yes?
There's a really bad delay or whatever in your questions. So I'm wondering, why don't we wait till she's done? But also, let's see if we can figure out another way for you to maybe send an email with your question to me or so, and I can just read it.
Okay, not a problem.
Thanks.
Maybe is he allowed to text in the chat of the Teams meeting?
David,
That's
try
probably a better way to do it.
Yeah, try the text in the team meeting. If you can read that, Ryan.
CTE pathways comprised of 2 or more CTE courses in an industry area. The last course in the sequence is called a capstone. When a student completes the series of courses, they're considered a pathway completer. This status often highlights their readiness for post-secondary education, training, or direct entry into the workforce. Last year, our pathway completion went up 1.4% to 29%.
Yeah, you can ask questions along the way. Sorry, David. Yeah.
I have a question. Do all of our CTE pathways have a capstone?
Yes, they do.
Option. Okay.
All of them
thank
do.
you.
Yes. The 24-25 school year currently has 29 high-quality CTE pathways across 5 campuses, and it representative of 10 of the 15 industry areas. The current pathways include the implementation of 12 newer revised courses from last year. And efforts are being made towards alignment in high priority areas, and we are adding 3 additional pathways next year. One of the most exciting aspects of CTE programs is that they're aligned directly with the needs of our region. We partner with local employers and industry leaders to identify skills and qualifications that are in demand right here in our community. This means that our classes are not just theoretical, but they're designed to prepare students for jobs in high-growth sectors. This is a map of the employment locations in Escondido taken from the 2021 census. The darker the cluster, the higher concentration of jobs. The chart on the left is the counts of jobs by the National American Industry Classification Cluster.
I had a quick question about that, if you mind. So out of the remaining 5 California industries that exist, right, the different sectors, one of them is health and science and medical technology, which I think here is the highest classified one. Are there any plans to add that one, that sector?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
In this slide, we've added our schools. As you can see, our high schools offer pathways in sectors in the top industry sectors of Escondido. Here is a view of high schools by pathways. As you can see, our high schools offer pathways in direct alignment to regional industry needs, specifically construction, automotive, manufacturing, agriculture, business, hospitality, and arts and media.
Oh, Mia, can you go back a second? There was a lot of squares there and you read a few of them. So you just highlighted some of them. Okay.
Yes. I highlighted the ones that are the largest of the cluster in the map area. And they're the ones that are offered at our high schools.
Okay, thank you.
To remain relevant with our current industry trends, all CTE teachers must meet at least annually with local employers to understand our local workforce needs. During our fall semester, we've already had 140 employers engage with CTE teachers at local CTE industry meetings. This list is on the consent item for tonight's board meeting.
Where do you usually find, or how would community members, let's say, volunteer to be part of these industry advisors the list of industry advisors? So.
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically what we'll do is we'll partner with our local community college that may already have employers that they're working with for placement, and we will have our teachers attend the advisory meetings and then have the members also attend our advisory meetings. Sometimes we have joint advisory meetings. Additionally, we offer tours of our facilities to specific industry groups so they're aware of our programs, and at that point we'll ask them if they would like to join in our advisories. We do we encourage participation with local employers as much as possible so that we're truly reflective. We also do a post survey, so when our students complete the pathway, we survey them 2 years after, and if they're in the industry, we'll also invite them to come back to our advisory, and then we ask our community and our parents if they would like to participate if they're in that industry area. So it's kind of like an octopus. We got tentacles everywhere.
Thank you.
And if you know anybody that would like to participate, please let us know.
Have them reach out to you? Okay.
Absolutely.
Hey, is there, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, Dave.
Is there a website where a partner can sign up?
Actually,
is there any
David, because I read about tech, your packets are not coming through in one stream. So I'll ask your question or at least one of your questions for you. And Marie brought it over. So if you have another question, David, send it to her, please. David wants to know, is there a reason for increased enrollment?
That's a great question. So our CTE teachers and teams have been actively recruiting into CTE pathways. We do CTE awareness events where we invite the middle schools to come onto the campus and participate with our CTE students. We do a push-out campaign where our CTE students go into the middle schools and do demonstrations at the middle school so the families and the students are aware of the pathways. Additionally, our students are active in their career technical student organizations, and they're highlighted in the high schools. So students that are currently in the high schools are informed of the CTE pathways. On top of that, CTE is embedded in our intentional guidance plan where our counselors push into the classrooms by grade level and let the students know which pathways are available to them. So I think the combination of team effort, of awareness and education in it has definitely contributed to the increase in enrollment.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. The career technical education programs are designed to ensure that students have a seamless transition from high school to college and the workforce by collaborating with local colleges and universities to align their curriculum with higher education requirements and industry standards. And to do this, they develop articulation agreements. These agreements allow students to earn college credit while still in high school by completing their CTE courses. This not only saves time and money, but also accelerates their educational and career goals. So on this chart, we've had a pretty big growth area in articulated credit, and this school year we've had more than 500. Last school year we've had more than 500 students earn college credit through CTE courses.
And so that is, are those specific classes that falls within, it's not all CET classes that can count for college credit, correct?
Right, it's specific classes. So it's teacher to teacher, faculty to faculty. So the CE teacher and the faculty will review the curriculum, and if the high school course is equivalent to what the community college is offered, then they'll go into an agreement, and then students need to have a specific grade and pass the final or portfolio to earn the credit. And so we offer as much as our local community college offers.
So also, is Mount SAC a private school?
No, it's a public community college, and they articulate with our agricultural programs because Palomar College doesn't offer agriculture.
Okay.
In addition to alignment with local colleges, we align our curriculum with local trade apprenticeships. We currently have an agreement with Western State Carpenters Union, and we've jointly applied to the Division of Apprentice Standards to offer pre-apprenticeship.
So what does that mean in terms of the apprenticeship? So they get, we'll call it credit for the apprenticeship, or they get co-enrolled in that, or what does that look like?
It's a great question. That's a great question. So students earn, go back there. Students earn hours that are counted towards the apprentice program's certification. So they have different tiers. And so as students demonstrate certain competencies and go through a set curriculum that is offered through the Western Carpenters, then they earn certificates that are issued by the Department of Apprentice. So they get authentic directly from the apprentice programs, and then they can use those for apprentice programs that say that they satisfied or met certain areas, so it gives them the advantage when they go into apprentice programs. Yeah, so it's a big deal.
I think so. I'm really happy to hear that.
I am too.
Since David is talking, I'll ask his question. Is there a website link where businesses and partners can sign up?
There is. It's on our district website under CTE, and there is an advisory link, and it goes directly to my email. But we are in the process of revamping it so that we can solicit a little bit more actively.
Because it looks like you have several hundred people that are community partners that are involved.
Some have used our current system through the website, but I think we can get a little fancier. CTE Pathways also offer industry-recognized certifications for students, so they're ready for employment right and graduation. This is just a handful of some of the certifications that students earn.
Can you guys hear me clearly now? Because I was going to ask, follow up with Ryan's question about health.
David, so sorry, my friend, you're still breaking up.
Okay, I'm on a separate computer, so it's obvious it's maybe on your side because I switched over to a different computer. But anyhow.
Okay, we'll let you try, David, but after 15 minutes, we're cutting you off.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, you're cut off. We love you, though, David. We miss you.
Too funny.
That came through. Okay, Mia, you can continue.
Thank you. CTSO is a career and technical student organization. This is an integral part of many of our CTE programs. These organizations provide students with opportunities to enhance their learning experiences through leadership development, competition, and real-world application of technical and professional skills. This school year alone, many of our CTSO teams have competed and placed competitively in state and national competitions. This evening, we've invited a handful of our CTE Future Farmers of America and our distributive education clubs, DECA, from Del Lago Academy and San Pasqual. They'll be here if you have questions for them at the end of the presentation. And lastly, we're here at the end of the presentation. February is CTE month. I would like to give a special thanks to our support staff, our teachers, everyone that pulls it together. And thank you for allowing us to provide CTE updates this year.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. So I noticed that in the consent calendar that we're voting on tonight, that we're approving some money to go to the DECA conference. Would one of the students be interested in talking a little bit about what, how they're, just all about all their involvement and what they might accomplish there?
That's a great idea.
Thanks for volunteering, because otherwise I was going to have to pick someone in the front row.
Hi, good afternoon. I personally think DECA does help a lot. It's helped me personally, public speaking skills, and I still feel very new to DECA due to all that we can learn from it. It helps prepare us for future opportunities that we will face, like job interviews. Like at DLA, we're currently going to start next week internships, and so we will have to interview. And I feel like DECA has helped me very much to know how to be confident and just know that like whatever I say, to be very genuine and honest and persuasive and just, yes, genuine. So, because there's only one of me and one of everybody else, and we have a lot of potential. And yes, that is.
What are you going to interview for? Do you know?
I'm going to be a counselor at Mission Middle School because I want to pursue healthcare, but I do enjoy DECA very much because it has opened my opportunities. So I can also pursue entrepreneurship or hospitality, and just I feel like people skills, it has improved vastly.
One piece of advice my father gave me that served me well is that looking for a job is a job. So you get out at 8 in the morning, you go look for work, and then once you get a job, you can get other jobs. So don't be afraid to take something that may not be perfect, because when people see you working, they know that you work hard and then they want you. So a little bit of advice there.
Thank you.
Thank you for talking. I'd love to hear from one of the future farmers. I got a tour of the ag and all that. It was extremely impressive.
Good evening. My name is Reese Mori from the Escondido FFA. Currently, I am a vice president for the chapter. I also specialize in goat internship, helping make sure goat production's all sound at our farm, making sure babies are healthy, all of that. I'm also involved with engineering, welding, and all that. And yeah, I would say FFA has been very beneficial to my high school career and my future, because I substantially know what I'm going to do in the future, be a farmer, raise animals, grow flowers, grow plants, just whatever makes me happy, I love farming.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm super jealous, actually. And then, let's see here, hold on. Oh, later, okay. Okay. And then the people on the front row, your badges, I'm not sure what they are, so thank you so much for speaking. Would one of you like to say what you guys represent? Okay, so you're DECA as well, but okay, got it. Anybody else would like to try to stand up and share and worry about that? Okay. Oh, okay. Well, thank you, students. But there is one more question from David for Mia. As per Ryan's comment earlier regarding health services, what programs are going to be offered?
That's a great question. We're currently surveying we're working with not that I'm stumped, I have so many things to say. So there are a couple different areas in healthcare that we can approach. One is patient care. One is support systems, supporting mental health. They're both huge areas in our region. We are applying to several grants to try to support some of the programs, because especially with patient care, it's very equipment heavy, at least for the start. And we're working with some of our students in some of our areas and some of our teacher leaders to find out what the interest would be during the course selection process to make sure that we have enough students of interest. And we're also reaching out to our CTE region meetings to see if there are teachers available in those specific areas. We've met with San Marcos University about some of the mental health services and the pathways that they are currently creating. And we've met with Palomar with some of their science pathways to see which ones would be willing to articulate. It's been a very busy spring and
No problem. Thank you so much.
Have it- sorry.
Go ahead, Ryan. No.
Yeah, do you have anything else on your road, we'll say your roadmap? Like what's on your wish list for the next 18 months?
For pathway development?
Or for any pathway or courses?
Yeah, absolutely. So the three areas that we really need to support are healthcare, public service, and education, because those are the three high priority areas that our system we need to start having students graduate from. So we've developed the education pathway and we'll be piloting it next year. That is in direct alignment with the P3 program that our feeder district has, which is basically a roadmap to become a teacher. And they'll go on to be educators. And so we already have a relationship where our seniors are interviewed and hired for that, but now we'll have an articulated pathway where the internship placements are at our feeder district, so the students have experience doing that. So that's one pathway. The other is public service. We're looking at fire technology. We currently have an outdoor program where we have the cadets that come in and they support our students for firefighting at Orange Glen. And we put that on the course selection. If enough students sign up for that, we'll offer the fire technology pathway. And we've developed the pilot program to be in alignment directly with the fire technology program that is at Palomar College, and with some influence from Miramar College. And so we'll hopefully offer that pathway, because that is one area, especially bilingual firefighters is a really huge need, especially in this area. And then the health piece. And the health piece is pretty complex, but we'll be rolling that one out as well. So in the next 18 months, 2 years, hopefully all three of those pathways will be ones that will have CTSOs here talking about their programs.
And I guess I would say when it comes to funding, I think this is an area where there's promising funding from the state. So this is an area where we should hopefully be receiving more state support for growing these pathways.
100%. So the high priority areas are the ones that are eligible for some of the funding that we've been applying for. And so those are some of the areas that we've received some funding for education. We've received some funding for the fire technology, and then we'll be rolling out the health shortly. So it's exciting.
I appreciate all your hard work and your team, and definitely very successful to date. So I appreciate everything.
Well, thank you.
Was that muffled?
Cadence?
I just had a quick question on understanding that Valley is a continuation school. Why is it that they only have one type of CTE course?
That's a great question. So it's based on student enrollment, so the amount of students that can participate in the pathway. We did change the pathway 2 years ago, 2 years ago, to one of the high priority areas. In the past, it was arts and media, but we moved it into a manufacturing pathway so that students that do go through it will have highly marketable skills. I think that as we progress and we start developing things, we're always open to adding additional pathways. We just need to make sure there are enough noses in the seats to make the programs viable, especially in high priority areas.
When you say noses and seats, roughly minimum requirement that you're looking for?
Yeah, so for a course, you want to have approximately 30 students, but you want to have 2 courses. So you want to have the concentrator and capstone. And because there's competing master schedule things for students, you typically want to have at least 2 concentrator sections and so 30, 30, 30, you want to have about 90 students for a pathway to be successful.
Thank you. Oh, those are nice.
Yeah.
Those are. Ryan, stand up. You can model, you wore it. You get to model it. Yes, that's one of these. Yes.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you, Mia, very much, and for your team and all you're doing. We're here for you, whatever you need.
Thank you all and all the students for coming and spending your time with us.
Thank you.
I'm impressed you all.
Thank you so much.
Great job.
All righty. So now, yes. we will move on to item D4, special education presentation by Dr. Jeremy Owen. And so every February, oh, it didn't update in my, there we go. Okay, so we're going to get a presentation from Dr. Owen regarding the current state of special education programs. And we do have one speaker. Am I going to call the speaker before? Okay. So we do have one speaker on this agendized topic, and she will be called up after the presentation, and that will be Maria Nielsen. All right, Dr. Owen.
All right, well, thank you to the board, Mr. Peterson, Cabinet, for having me. Absolutely love talking about student support, so I was excited to have this opportunity.
Hold on one second. Is his mic on?
It is. It's on.
It's on, but I guess you have to get a little.
Test. Can you hear me better?
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much.
Just saying thank you to the board, Mr. Peterson, Cabinet, for having me. I love to talk about student support, and so I was very encouraged to come here. It's a challenge to try to take all of special education and condense it down into one presentation. There are so many different rabbit holes that we can kind of go down and explore. And so today, it's a little bit more topical in terms of what is the intent of special education law and what does special education look like for our students. So my name is Dr. Owen. I've been in special education for 18 years. I joined our district in 2023 as the coordinator for special education, and then in October moved into this position. So disability is a natural part of the human experience and in no way diminishes the right of individuals to participate in or to contribute to society. This is the opening of IDEA, which is our federal guidelines for special education. And really, when you look through the language and when you get through, there's so many different sections and parts, but when you get to why do these rules, why do these laws exist, the intent of special education is access. It's simply about how does an individual with a disability be provided with the right supports so that they can access their education and so that they can access their peers and their peer group. And so when we talk about special education law, always keep that in the back of your head in terms of why are we making these decisions? What factors should we consider? It's going back to, does that enable the student to access their peers, their education to the greatest extent that they can? So federal laws for educating handicapped individuals go back to the mid-70s. And it's been a law that's been amended many times. And really what it boils down to now currently when we talk about providing student support is providing all students with a free and appropriate public education. And so what we're looking at is what is that child's unique set of needs and what do they need to overcome that so that they can access some degree of education. Two of the primary tenets in making decisions for students are listed on this page. And this is really what we're going to spend this presentation covering, because if you can understand these two components, you can really apply this to any aspect of special education. If you're talking about discipline, well, how does free, appropriate public education and least restrictive environment, how do those factors combine to think about how a student with a disability should be disciplined? If you're thinking about supporting a behavior or increasing a student's ability to communicate, again, it all comes back to this in determining what's appropriate for that child. So that first term, free appropriate public education, an acronym for us is FAPE, is simply as it reads, that public education is to be free to every individual, whether they're typically developing or have a disability. Ages 3 through 22 have the rights to receive this free public education. Second, the public education needs to be appropriate. And this is an interesting topic because appropriate really is a subjective matter when you think about it. And how do you determine what is appropriate for a student? A teacher, a parent, an administrator may have a very different perspective on what that appropriateness is. And so when we get into talking about an actual IEP, an educational program for a student, it's really recognizing that the ownership of a decision for a student doesn't lie with one person. That student has a team of individuals who are accountable to have discussions, to consider pros and cons and make determinations to then come up with what is appropriate. The second term here, least restrictive environment. And this is a component that, to the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities are educated with children who are not disabled. And so as we go through and look at our programs and really our options and considerations for where students should be served, we're always thinking what's appropriate to meet their unique needs? And then also, is this the least restrictive environment for them? Are we providing them access to their typical peers to the extent that is appropriate?
Dr. Owen, before you move on, will you be going into much more extensive explanation of the least restrictive environment?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm also happy at any point to interrupt and we can kind of have a conversation. I'll tie it back.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So what is an IEP, Individual Education Program? It's synonymous with special education. If you're in special education, you have an individualized program. If you have an individualized program, that means you're in special education. And what this individualized program is it's a process really to establish, based on data, based on fact, based on how a student's currently doing, what that student's future supports should look like. And so an IEP, it's both a process in terms of the team collaborating, working together to make educational decisions, but it's also a product. And so there is a tangible, after an IEP meeting, parents, the team, teachers who maybe couldn't come to that meeting are given the IEP packet. And it's a series of pages that outlines how the student is doing, what supports they need, and kind of how those decisions were arrived at. So I know this is difficult to read, but an IEP starts with the present levels of performance. We're looking at how is a student functioning now? What are their strengths? What are their areas of deficit? And if the team determines that there is an area of deficit, whether it be, let's say that a student struggles in math, or a student has social emotional concerns and can't self-regulate, we go through all these different components that could play a factor in a student's educational experience and highlight where, if the student has deficits in any of those areas. If they do, then the meat of the document is really establishing goals to address those areas of deficit. And so for that student who struggles in math, he's going to have math goals. For a student who has a hard time self-regulating and might kind of get explosive and angry, he's going to have self-regulation goals. Then there's a direct connection then to the services and supports that they need. For that student in their math class, maybe they require accommodations, like they need a calculator. Maybe they have to do a reduced amount of problems just because the length of doing that takes them so long. Furthermore, maybe they need some extra instruction in math to meet those goals. And so then we would have time with a special education teacher instructing them. And so the educational program, it really emphasizes that individualized. If you look at two IEPs, they should not look similar because individuals aren't similar. That wonderful comment about everyone being unique. That's really the goal of this process and of this document and designing a program, is highlighting, here's an individual with a disability that's caused them to have deficits in these areas. Let's make goals in those areas so they can improve. Now, what services do they need so that they can actually meet those goals? Now that conversation, that IEP meeting can happen many times, but at least it happens annually. So this isn't a one-time in our 9th grade, you're in our district now, we set this plan for you. It's every year the team comes back, reconvenes, and establishes new present levels. Did they meet their old goals? And then that process continues.
Can I ask some questions for some more context?
Please.
The team that you keep describing, is there an established, like this is who needs to sit on that team and it has to be one person like this, one person like this. So
Yes.
what does that team consist of?
Yeah, so at a bare minimum, it's an administrator,
Okay.
parent, a special education teacher, and a general education teacher.
Okay. And does that team stay the same throughout the student's time at school, or could that change multiple times throughout the year? Like how often might that change?
Yeah, so the general education teacher has the greatest likelihood of shifting just because, you know, you bring the math teacher in math 1, math 2, they have a different math teacher, so it's a different representative. Typically, we try to keep students with the same case manager, that special education teacher. There are a number of reasons, though, why it might shift or change. You know, and then the administrator is typically the same year to year. But it's both a pro and a con, if you will. You know, some well-established teams know the student, and it's kind of everything flows really easily. Other times when it's new people, there might be more questions. And so maybe we delve deeper into different topics. And so, again, every meeting, we have the same procedure that's followed, but the conversation can look very different.
And then because we're a high school, 9 through 12, a majority of our students are coming to our district, arriving to our district with an established IEP already. Is there situations where we are actually establishing an IEP new for a student at a high school level that has never had an IEP? Could you maybe help me understand that?
That transitions me right into the next step.
Okay, good.
Love it. So to zoom out, that last slide, looking at the IEP, was the annual meeting. And so that's the document where we establish what are the goals for the next year. But obviously not everyone receives an IEP. And so there is an assessment process. So all public schools are obligated to seek out students who may have disabilities and assess and then offer them an offer of FAPE if they do have a disability. And so that's kind of the starting point of special education law, is this term called child find. That if someone suspects a disability, the public school is responsible for assessing for that and seeing if special education is required. So most, and I don't have exact numbers for you, but most of our students all come with an IEP. A lot of these disabilities are identified, you know, 2nd to 4th grade. For more profound ones, it's when they're younger. But we do, I wouldn't say 100, but we do a lot of initial assessments, which is that first time saying, oh, does the student have a disability? Let's do an assessment. So in that assessment, it's a team based on kind of what the concerns are. Are there speech and language concerns? If not, then a speech pathologist won't be there. But that team is guided by a school psychologist. And the purpose of the assessment is twofold. One, it's an opportunity, it's a very thorough and extensive search where you're going back through educational records to see, is there a pattern of struggle here? Doing assessment in terms of cognitive ability, how a person thinks and reasons and processes information. Academic assessment in terms of what are your reading levels, your math levels. And then a lot of social emotional assessment that's gathered through rating scales. You know, does a student demonstrate some type of behavior an atypical amount of time? And so with all this information, that's a plethora to establish that present levels of performance. So then when we get to that IEP writing and figuring out what does the student need, well, here's this baseline with all of this information for a snapshot of how they're doing now. So to me, that's really important, because then you can talk about how a student will benefit from support. The second reason that we do an assessment, though, is to determine eligibility for special education. There's 14 different handicapping conditions, and the school psychologist and others on the team are looking, do you meet the criteria for one of these? If you meet the criteria, and if the nature of that disability is such that you require special education, so you require something that's different, then you're eligible for special education. So there can be a case where we assess a student and it's pretty clear they have dyscalculia, a math disability, but maybe they already passed all their math classes, that they don't need to take math anymore. Or maybe they're in math and they're doing fine. That second prong is, well, you don't need special education. You have this disability, but there are natural supports that can help you. So that, does that kind of answer all of those questions around that?
Yes, thank you.
And then the rest of this image is just similar to the one before, just kind of boiling down those key components of the IEP. From the assessment, we hold an IEP meeting, talk about those present levels of performance, establish goals for deficit areas, and then talk about services and educational setting. Educational setting being, where is all of this happening?
Dr. Owen, I'm assuming that, you know, as you say, you do an assessment, but I mean, I'm thinking once a year is probably not enough. I don't know, you know, I'm not a professional in this area. What is the trigger to set up a new assessment or to set up a new IEP? Like, what is it? Just a parent saying, hey, I want my child to be reassessed? Is there performance goals? Is there safety? What would cause a reassessment?
Yeah, any number of the things you just listed, and it could be brought up by anyone on that IEP team. So, and just to clarify, to go back, the IEP document, the annual plan for that year, that's reviewed once a year. The actual assessment process with the school psychologist happens once every 3 years.
So then more to my question then, on that IEP meeting, if there are issues in a classroom or with the child or what have you, how often or can a parent just call up and say, hey, I want to meet with you guys and have an IEP meeting?
Yes. So a parent can request an IEP meeting at any time. They have the right to do so, and there's no limit to it. Well, we already met this month or whatever. It's when someone on the team is saying this isn't working, any of those people have the right to convene a meeting. And so if in that meeting, let's say that you know, you're talking about a student and they're really not engaged with any of the work, they're off task all the time, they're demonstrating these behaviors that's interrupting the rest of the class. Well, then we have a consideration of, all right, do we already know this information? Do we have a plan to address this? Is it easy to pivot? If not, if it doesn't feel like we have a robust answer, then that would trigger an assessment. Do we need to do an assessment to look at a functional behavior assessment? Do we need to look at the consideration of adding additional adult support? So there are a myriad of different types of assessments that can be done that isn't necessarily that, do you qualify for special education? It's saying, we need more information because this is a problem that the current IEP is not addressing.
I don't know, later in this presentation, will you be going into timelines, i.e. in tech, we used to call it deliverables, that there's deliverables at certain timelines when a request is made that it has to be accomplished by?
I didn't include slides on it.
You did not? Okay.
But I can comment that if someone requests an IEP meeting, the team has 30 days to hold that IEP meeting.
Is that state law?
Yes.
So that's the maximum.
The maximum would be 30 days, yes.
Right, but it could be sooner.
Yeah, and it depends on what the concern is that's being brought up. I think that it's in the law, it may say 30 days or a reasonable amount of time. So obviously, if there's some extreme safety issue concern, that could prompt something being faster versus, hey, I want to get together and talk about, you know, classes for next semester.
Okay, thank you.
And then special education is all driven by timelines. So I don't want to spout off too many, but like for the child find, if someone suspects a disability and puts it in writing, we have 15 days to respond with an assessment plan or an answer to say, this is what the reason we're not going to do an assessment. Once they sign that assessment plan, we have up to 60 days to gather all the information and hold a meeting to propose that IEP. Just a little context about special ed in general. In the state of California, about 1 in 8 students receive special education support. In Escondido here, both us and the elementary, the number is a little bit higher. We're at about 15 to 16% of our students are in special education. This graph, based on the size, demonstrates the prevalence of different disabilities and who we serve. So you can see the most common being a student with a learning disability, and then some other prevalent ones, speech impairment, another health impairment, or autism. So those are just a couple of those 14 different handicapping conditions.
How many total students do we have in the high school district for special ed?
Let's hope this is the next slide and this will be going really well. Nope. I do have it. Do you want me to skip ahead?
Oh, no,
Okay.
just I'll wait till it comes up.
Okay. So getting into what our current services look like, what does it look like for our students in Escondido? I'm going to be referring to this picture a lot. You'll see it on a lot of slides. And it's helpful to think of special education not as necessarily the one place or one thing, but there's a continuum of services. Each of these boxes represents kind of a different setting or a different level of support. And within each of those different settings or supports, there's also a multitude of different interventions within that level. And so this is going back to that first slide when we talked about what is appropriate. That ultimately, as we work through the IEP process and determining supports for a student, we're getting to what are the services that they require. Okay. So like I said at the onset, there's a lot here to unpack. I tried to just make it the most comprehensible. Please feel free to interrupt with questions as I'll kind of just go through these relatively quickly. But at our comprehensive sites, that box in red, that's the scope or the continuum of services that we offer at our school sites. So of course, we always start with general education. Every student in special education is a general education student first. They just have additional or more unique needs. For a student that we determine they require specialized academic instruction or extra support, or that they require special ed, we then start to consider moving down this continuum into, if you think of it essentially as more intensive levels of intervention. So the second level here is general education with consultation or accommodations. Imagine that math student who presented as having a math disability but is doing fine in their class. We don't need to move further down and do a higher level intervention for them if giving them a calculator or giving them a set of notes or some accommodation in the class meets their need and allows them to access the instruction and the curriculum. But for many of our students, they do require that additional teaching. Maybe the pace of the math class is too strong or too fast. There's no one really to check in with. And so the majority of our students receive support through co-taught classes. And what this is it's considered a general education class because we have a math teacher, the content specialist who's teaching it. But in addition to that, there's also a special education teacher that joins the class. So now there's 2 teachers to those 30 students. The point of having the special education teacher in the room is they're the expert in access, in figuring out, building accommodations, building supports for students to get by in a curriculum that they struggle in. And so our co-taught classes are generally a third students with IEPs and 2/3 students without IEPs.
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
Yes, our co-taught classes are generally made up of 1/3 students with IEPs and 2/3 students without IEPs. And this is a model really that, say, the majority of high school districts have moved to, because what we've achieved is they still have access to general education curriculum instruction, and they have access to their typical peers in that setting. Alondra, do you have a question?
Yeah, what's IOP again?
Yes, I'm going to get to that on the next page.
Oh, sorry, what type of classes would you consider are co-taught classes? I mean, obviously, is it all math classes, English classes, all classes in general, or specific ones?
Yeah, generally classes that are required towards reaching a diploma. So when you look at all math, all English, science, history, kind of the core classes that students need. And
I understand the concept in terms of benefiting both students, right? But what are the benefits of, if you've got 1/3 of the students who don't have an IEP, or sorry, 2/3 students don't have one, 1/3 does. In that case, like what type of, And I guess this is a general question, right? What type of experience does that create for the various student groups?
Yeah. The intent behind it really, one is it reduces the ratio. And so when you have, that essentially one teacher to 15 students, and it allows for some adaptability within the class in terms of doing student groups in the model of co-teaching that they have, if there's kind of a master teacher and a teacher roving. In terms of the exact experience of students, I think that would be interesting, to gather information on. Because I don't want to speak for them. I do know that the philosophy is that if a student requires support in their class with a special education teacher, that if we're able to do that in the context of having a math expert in the room, having this access expert in the room, that the student with the disability or who struggles in math has all of this extra support and they're able to maintain progress and pace with their peers. So that's the benefit to them. I think the benefit to students without a disability is, learning to work with others, and they also have the extra support. We have a number of students who have either been exited from special education or were in a co-taught class, going to the counselor the next semester and saying, hey, can I go back in that co-taught class? Because I got the attention that I wanted, that maybe I wouldn't get in a class of 30 students.
So when you're saying that, like, say there's 20 kids in the class, rough number, and it's a math class. So you're saying that there's the general education teacher in there, and then there's a special education specialist for, say, math in that classroom?
No, so there's a special education teacher. They don't really have an emphasis in an academic area. But then the content specialist, whether that's the math teacher or the English teacher, they're the expert on that curriculum.
And so if there are, say, 5 special ed students in that class, there's a special ed teacher or coordinator in that classroom helping out?
Yes.
Okay. And, okay, I think that works for now. Thanks.
So not all students can access the instruction that's in that co-taught class. And so when I say access, I'm not talking about that they're not able to pass the class. I'm going back to their IEP, looking at their goals, and if the support in that class is not allowing them to make progress on their individual unique goals, then that's when we start to have this question about, is this the right setting? Is this student able to act? What's the benefit to them being in that classroom? Let's say that they're not making progress on their math goals. They're not passing this math class. Then we'd have some questions that, maybe they're not able to access the instruction or the curriculum for a variety of these different reasons. And that's when we start to think about changing placement. And so our next more intensive intervention are our SAI classes. And this is a class that's taught by a special education teacher and only has students with IEPs in the class. This is a significant change. At the end of this, we'll get to why we spend so much time talking about LRE, least restrictive environment, and how that's monitored, because this is a separate setting. Essentially, what we've done is we've taken them away from typical peers and put them in a separate setting for this period of time, because we've determined they can't access the instruction at these higher levels. So this is a pretty substantial jump in making this change of placement. The great thing about this, though, is that it still does work towards credit for a state diploma. So we're not taking them off of a diploma track.
Can I ask a question? Let's say, what would cause, let's say, a reevaluation of if students are accessing the co-taught classes, however, for various reasons might not be successful in those co-taught classes. And success could look like a number of things. I mean, I can't give you a scenario because I don't have the experience. But like, let's say that the student has the access, they could pass that class, but perhaps the behaviors or whatever is not a good fit for the other 20 students, or even the other 29 students in that class, because how do you reassess something like that? And
yeah, and that's a common problem. And I think in talking about any change of placement at any level, that's where the challenge lies. Because in terms of the individualized education program and the rights of that student, the conversation needs to be focused and centered around what that student benefits from. Now, there is consideration, though, in terms of what does the behavior or the attitude or whatever it is, how does that impact the learning of others? And the IEP team is responsible for still addressing that. So it's not like, oh, he's benefiting from the class, there's nothing that needs to change. And so that's when the team, and again, it's never just one thing, but the team gets together and discusses, does the student have a behavior plan? Do they need some type of reinforcement system? Would they benefit from being in the same level of class with a teacher that they have better rapport with? So whether it's just changing a simple thing in the IEP, adding accommodations, or maybe it's we don't know what the answer is. Maybe we should do a social emotional assessment on this child to see if there are issues that we haven't been addressing.
You keep referring back to that student as opposed to the benefit of the entire class. I think that's a big concern we have, that the disruption to the rest of the class overweighs just that one individual student's improvement. So something to maybe talk about.
I guess another scenario to consider is, like, for me to understand, what if a parent of another student brought forward concerns about, it might not be co-taught classes, it could be any number of the settings you're presenting. Sure. And I think the question comes down to, if another parent then has concerns, what does that balance look like between concerns of, one parent versus perhaps what's written into an IEP of another student? And because I've never been part of this process and dug this deep into really understanding all of that, please help us kind of understand what that would look like.
Yeah, it's complicated because where we're going with this is not oftentimes, but there are times that IEP teams don't agree. And so it's very common that we're in a situation like this, where a student does some egregious act. And from the special education lens, again, going back to what's appropriate for them, what's the least restrictive for them, and what are their rights, we'll cover procedural safeguards in a little bit. That student has certain protections if the issues are stemming from their disability. Now, that's not to say that we preclude and ignore anything else that's being brought up, but that's an extra challenge to the team to say, okay, if this is due to the child's disability, that's one thing. If it's not, we can proceed with discipline. But if it is due to that, what are we doing? How can we change our proactive measures to address this deficit area? Sometimes it is changing the placement. Sometimes it's readjusting, what goes into the IEP. Sometimes it's doing an assessment. It's hard to talk in general terms, but ultimately what has to happen is that group of people needs to come together and consider all the information. A lot of times we have a site administrator who says this is a problem. In whatever regard, and we need something to change because this problem can't persist. So then it's going back to that IEP team and saying, okay, this isn't working. Now, what can we do to change this so that we're setting this student, but have all the other students up for success as well? So I guess ultimately it's not saying that other factors besides the student don't matter. It is saying that we have to think through that student's situation first, but also considering what is the impact to others. That's certainly a consideration. And at the end of this presentation, walking away with 4 bullet points of what to consider, that's one of them. All right, Alondra, to get to your question, the IOP program, that's what we formerly called it, rebranded it last year to the Journey program, is, so again, we're going down in intensive intervention levels. This is a separate program that supports students with significant social and emotional needs. And so the approach, it's very therapeutic in terms of having lots of counseling available, setting up an environment that kind of decreases or tries to minimize, triggering. And then our other separate program are our functional skills programs. And so these are, on this page, these are students with more moderate to severe disabilities. And so our students in the functional skills programs are not working towards a diploma. They work towards a certificate of completion. And when they age out of high school at age 18, many of them transition to our adult transition program that continues to work with them until they turn 22. Just an aside, so I give you the information, our alternative sites, Del Lago and Valley, they don't have the size, the capacity, those same programs. They operate through a consult model, which is really the students in the general education setting for pretty much their entire day with some consultation support, which is essentially check-ins or some guidance from teachers. Yes.
Is it also that other students, while taking a math test, are go to a different room to be accommodated?
Great point. Yep. So that's that bottom bullet point. They can go to a separate setting. Our special education teachers at those sites do have their own classroom. And so sometimes students will leave and take a test with them, or maybe they need to be retaught something, ask some questions. I referenced the adult transition program, and so this is really great. It's right here on site at the DSC, and what's wonderful about this is the shift really moves away from academia, kind of high school priorities, and now we're completely looking at what does independent living look like. What are functional skills? What are the adaptive skills that students can develop? And so at this point, going back to that IEP, their goals are really referencing what are they doing in terms of learning the next step for them to become autonomous. So it might be learning to ride the bus by themselves. The goals might be being able to cook or prepare meals for themselves. All right, so getting back to the question about how many students do we have and where are they served? So this graphic kind of aims to demonstrate we have over 1,000 students in special education. 80% of those are considered mild to moderate, and those are students who are served either in general education settings or in that SAI class. You can see students in our programs, Journey and Functional and START. And then something we haven't talked about, but that we will touch on, we have 10 students in non-public placements. And so these are private schools that serve specialized groups of students. We have 2 students that are residentially placed, and that's where they need to live at the site where they receive education. And then 10 students on home hospital instruction. Generally, there's a medical issue that can't be overcome. They can't come to school. And so we provide home instruction to them.
So the facilities where students would be placed that they're not allowed to leave, I think we have some are out of state.
Yes.
Is that the 2 residential students?
It's 2 within ours, and then there is one student through the Escondido Charter School. So we're working with 3 total, but as far as Escondido high numbers.
Thank you.
Is that you said our percentage is slightly higher than most schools around the area, right? Rather than 12, 13 to 15-ish?
It's higher than the state average. In the last couple of years, a lot of districts have spiked. So locally, I'd say that we're pretty consistent. I don't know where those schools are that are lower, but I know that some nearby districts are as high as 17%.
And with, so you've got 1,000 sped students, that's 1,000 IEPs, right? How do you keep, that sounds like a lot in general, right? So how do you keep up with all those different cases and keep them relevant to the student in a sense?
Yeah, so it takes a team. Thanks for the transition.
You're welcome.
So, this is our special education staff. So myself as the director, Caitlin Alto here is the special education coordinator. And then we have 3 program specialists. Each program specialist is at a comprehensive site and has an alternative site as well. And so as far as coordinating efforts and guiding the ship, if you will, looking at changes, looking at assembly bills that have to change our practice, providing professional development, a lot of that work lives with the 5 of us. But really, as we get down here, there's also 9 SPED managers. So we have psychologists, behavior interventionists, and mental health providers. A lot of the accountability, responsibility, skill set is with our special education teachers, our education specialists. The work that they have to do is pretty tremendous as far as the breadth of skills they have to have. They're the ones who are writing IEPs. They're coordinating efforts with service providers. They're also in classes and teaching. So to get back to how do we support 1,000 students, it's having staff that are well prepared, well informed to be able to support their caseloads.
What does your turnover look as you get on that down that list?
Yeah. So probably in terms of turnover, instructional assistants are some of the most difficult positions to keep. We have 66 current spots. We have 5 vacancies right now. And it kind of fluctuates where, last year we were fully staffed for a month or 2, and then, we had some changes.
What does have some changes mean?
Just in terms of instructional assistants resigning from the position or something not working out, so then the position's open again.
Are we able to fire them?
Yeah. I mean, they go through the same process. The program specialists are their evaluators at each school site. And so they follow the same administrative practices, as any of our administrators do.
It says 66 instructional assistants. Do you know currently how many you have on hand?
We have 5 vacancies.
5, just so you have 61.
Right.
If you could just wave a wand, how many would you like? I'm serious.
I'd want to be thoughtful about my answer to you. Really, what I consider is looking at ratios. When we say teacher to student ratios. And so I would want to look at, because of these different programs and how we staff them, that would be the feedback in terms of what does the student need and what's a ratio that is acceptable and works for whatever that program is. For example, in START, those students are doing a lot of community-based instruction. And so they go out in groups, to different stores, different restaurants, they're riding the bus. And so a big factor in us being able to, for any students to move around here is looking at what's the staffing that day, what do we feel comfortable with? So it's a long-winded answer to say, I'd have to dig into each program individually.
Okay, so for a future meeting, Superintendent, I would love a presentation again of specific instructional assistants, potentially increased requirement that would serve the students better. So hopefully by maybe the March meeting, we could have an actual number, so that we could try to allocate funds to find people, because the students deserve it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Would you say the 66 assistants, is that designed to give you padding in a sense, right? So if you typically have, 5 open spots, it's not.
No.
Right, and so that means anytime that you have an open spot, the students in general are we'll say, suffering from that.
When we have an open spot, we've identified it's needed, and we're doing our utmost to try to fill it as quick as possible. And yeah.
I think there again. Go ahead, David.
What's the stability of the instruction aides? What are their stability.
In terms of kind of in how long they last in the position?
Yes.
It varies tremendously. We have some great instructional assistants that have been with us for 20 plus years. We have other ones, obviously that are just starting. As part of giving you more information, I can look into what the average.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fluid for what I understand. So I really think it's some valuable information that we need.
Yeah, I can look into that. And just a comment on, this isn't necessarily an issue that's specific to us in Escondido. You talk to any school district and their list of instructional assistant openings is pretty similar.
With that said, do we have here again, a deliverable? You said the utmost to fill it, but do we have a deliverable that we will fill that position within 10 days?
No. What we do, we try to hold interviews monthly. That's kind of the target. It really depends on who applies. I think our last round when it was open, we had one viable candidate ended up applying during that period. So it's an issue of supply and demand.
I think money solves it too, what we pay hourly. I think that for what we're trying to do here. So I think I want to see if we could please a little more attention on specifically how fast we need to fill things, and also maybe our pay scale in an effort to try to make sure we have enough people. Because
maybe we can look into some state funding too, Bob.
If I can jump in, President Weller.
Yeah.
Last month, the board approved reclassification with CSEA, where we evaluate positions and their comparable pay with comparable districts. A few years ago, we entered into an MOU with CSEA to create a hiring bonus. I think Dr. Owen have made this presentation 3 years ago, the number of vacancies in the instructional assistant arena would have been much higher. We closed that gap significantly with the help of CSEA and that hiring bonus. I have some additional details looking at some of our instructional assistants, and please don't tie me to these, but we have some that have been in the position since 2012, 2001, 1998. So several that go back many years, but as Dr. Owen did say, there is a degree of volatility in these positions, as they typically are entry-level positions in the district where people then progress into higher-level positions within our district, or simply, as you said earlier, this is the job they spent the time looking for. Now they're looking for the next job, or I forget the analogy from your father.
Yeah, I got it.
So that happens a little bit in this arena as well.
I have a question.
So I have to talk to them, to be honest with you, because I know it's not a difficult task, but it's extremely important. So I think we should acknowledge that.
Thank you. My question would be related to, as we're developing the LCAP, while I know funding streams are various locations, would special education be something that could be written into LCAP? No. Okay.
No, it's very specific for unduplicated students, low economically disadvantaged students, English learners, and foster youth. There are separate funding that we receive from the state and the federal government for special education specifically. It is categorical.
Even if those students, then let's say students within special ed might also fall within those unduplicated categories?
Yeah, we get really, really monitored on that, and we would have to be extremely creative. And even then, they might put the brakes on us for that. So yeah, they've been pretty explicit for that, because we do receive very specific categorized money and financing for special education only, which is pretty unique to any other student group.
I have a different way of looking at it, perhaps, because we use our LCAP dollars to benefit our entire district. How do you write it in a way where instructional assistants for our special ed students to access general education is part of that support for all students.
Yeah,
that our others are all that the instructional aides are part of that.
I understand the point, and we would love nothing more to do that. However, IEPs are very specific, and there's different categorizations of IAs. And so something Dr. Owen maybe we'll get into later or hasn't gotten into is like the IA that serves in a collab class or an SAI class is very different than the IA that serves in the journey class or the functional class or the mod severe class. Okay. And typically, if you're an IA 4 or 5 that's serving in the IOP class or the functional class, it's because the student has a one-on-one for very specific medical needs. And so to say we're going to fund something where it's like written for a very specific need for an individual student would be challenging. There might be a window of opportunity for the IAs that serve in an SAI setting, but even then that would be highly scrutinized. But
okay.
Yeah.
And as an aside, something that we started this year was really focusing on professional development with our instructional assistants. At the start of this year, we had a full day pullout that was offered to all of them just to go over components of IEPs and how to implement strategies, as well as our program specialists are doing a number of different site-based professional developments with their staffs as well. So that's really an area that we're focused on. Of course, addressing having the right number is critical, but we're really emphasizing, well, what are the skills that we're giving to someone to implement all of this work? All right, so we won't get lost on funding too much because that's not the point of this presentation, but I just did want to make a comment and is apropos for the timing, is that this graphic kind of depicts why special education is so expensive. You can see the cost just in general, the average of a general education student to a special education student. I believe these numbers are from the state, so I don't think this was a federal document. The second reason why it's expensive is you can see that of the special education costs that we're required to provide to students, federal funding and state funding only cover about a third of that. So our local contribution is 66%. Okay, quickly just to touch on non-public schools. So I had referenced before, going back to our continuum, our triangle, moving to more intensive interventions. These last two are sites that we do not offer through our district. And so there are some students based on the need, whether it's mental health, whether it's behavior, whether it's adaptive skills, that we're not able to meet the need of in our programs. And so that's when we look for a private school who funds all of the special education services. So they work off of the IEP that we write, and they help us develop them annually. Essentially, we contract with them to provide the services to the students. And so I know we talked earlier kind of just about moving students and changing their placement. This is often an area where IEP teams come into conflict, where either a parent saying, I want to go to this private school, you can't meet my child's needs. And, as the school, sometimes we agree. Other times we say, no, this is appropriate. Let us go through why this is appropriate. Or on the flip side, we get to the point of saying, we've exhausted our resources, our interventions here. We need to consider a private non-public school. And a parent says, no, I don't want to leave his school. This is where the family goes. So we'll get to that process in a moment. Just another quick comment on special ed funding. So non-public schools are pricey. You can see the amount of dollars that we've spent over the last 7 years, comparing annuals. And again, so this number, our current year, midway through the year, this is serving those 10 students that we have placed. We do also have a number of students who their offer of FAPE, their IEP says non-public school. And so we apply to these schools, to say like, here's our student, and they have the right to say, no, we don't want that student for whatever reason it is. And so we do have a small handful of students right now that are awaiting a non-public placement, either because there's not a spot open or because we haven't found a school that would be willing to provide those services.
So what do we do while we wait?
Yeah, and so again, going back to the IEP team, it's never one size fits all. For some students that we have students that come in a group home that, we always consider, could we bring them back to one of our comp sites? The behaviors, kind of the skills that they're dealing with, though, are to such a degree that it's not safe. It wouldn't work out for our programs or for the student, to be frank. And so in that case, we may offer home hospital instruction. There's typically like an interim type of offer. Sometimes if they're being served at one site, they may stay at that site, just pending placement at another school. It really depends on the circumstances. And again, going back to, your question about, well, like kind of what about the rest of the class? It's still the same perspective from any law judge that looks at it, as far as saying this student has an IEP, you've articulated what's appropriate and you're not providing it. And so, that's a very compromised situation that we're in when we're waiting for these non-public schools. So we do our best efforts in good faith to say this is the extent to which we can support while we're waiting.
You mentioned a judge. Do we find that we have many lawsuits as it relates to that?
No. Monthly, I'm on a listserv where we get the recent decisions. And I can tell you, anytime that you're not providing what's written in the IEP, the school district's going to lose. So I don't say that from personal experience. We did have one case last year that is essentially the case I'm describing. So we have dealt with it, but it's not super common.
In general, in this arena, are prevalent. So I don't want that to go, that is an elephant in the room, that perhaps there's even, and I have challenges with this, but there are families are approached even at times. So I struggle with the lawsuits and the familiar lawyers that repeatedly sue school districts. So I just wanted to have that on the record there. That needs to be addressed.
All right, finally moving on to residential schools. And so this is a student who's maybe at an NPS or has, refused to engage with an NPS. There's also that aspect that to place a student at a non-public school, it's very important for that school to have parent buy-in. Parent has to be, a team member. And if parent's not compliant or not showing up, the NPS placement's not going to work. But as an extension of that comment, there are some home situations that are so difficult where the student's behaviors or mental health or whatever it is, they can't even get the student to go to school. And these are very, very extreme cases, but this is when we're talking about a residential school. There are some states where there's locked facilities. In California, that's not legal. And so we go through a process of if a student requires that or not, finding a placement where they can both reside and receive their education. In terms of a change in placement, and we've talked about this a couple times, but really what the IEP team is tasked with, and again, any analysis of the efficacy of the team is looking through the lens of FAPE and least restrictive environment. And so what we do when we have challenges, as we've talked about, is, okay, can we make adjustments to the IEP? Do we know things need to change? Make a change to a schedule, shift classes? If not, do we need to do further assessment? And so the IEP team, when a student's current placement is in question, has to really go through and understand, are we providing all the supports that they need? Is there something else that we can try? Have we exhausted all the opportunities, essentially like at this tier level of intervention? In addition, going back to some of the first comments, we have to look at, well, what does the access to academics look like? What does the social access look like? And so these are all different factors that the team is talking about to determine, again, that subjective appropriateness. In addition, and there's a specific place in the IEP documentation where you have to write down what are the potential harmful effects of this decision. And so the team has to think about what are the things that may happen that may be negatively impacting the student if we make this change. And so kind of just in the process of, and from the intent of the law, is it's very cautious to really be reflective on, is there something else you can do in this setting before you change that setting?
How many days does that require? Because like one of the things I'm beginning to see is that this is very general stuff, but I'm assuming that there's legislative timelines that are required. And maybe tonight's not the night to show it, but I'd really like maybe you to come back, we can set it up with the superintendent to come back with very specific timelines that are legislative and maybe a deliverable that the district would like to see, especially when parents are requesting changes.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to answer that, like I said earlier, if someone requests an IEP meeting, we have 30 days. A lot of the other timelines, it's not written down as a specific number. What is said is a reasonable amount of time. And so, again, I recognize that's still kind of in that abstract world. When we talk about applying an intervention or trying something different, kind of from a behavioral lens, generally a time frame may be 6 to 8 weeks to implement some type of intervention and then be able to assess if there's a change, if it's benefiting the
Parents
situation.
have a say in this speed?
Yeah.
Like if they're not happy, like if they're like, look, I can't wait 6 to 8 weeks.
They can. And again, the 6 to 8 weeks, that's arbitrary in terms of when we look at MTSS and providing interventions and response time. How long does it take for someone to form a new habit? That's, again, it's kind of generic. But the team can have a discussion about, and oftentimes we do when we implement something, we can say, when are we going to evaluate this effectiveness? Is that a month? Is it? It depends on the exact circumstance for the student. But again, because it is nebulous in the language, the teams can get very specific about what their needs are. Final comment on a change of placement. And we haven't really covered yet a student's rights and parents' rights in this process. But essentially in the world of special education, nothing will happen or change without the parents' consent. So the school district does not have unilateral control to say, we're going to move your class and do this. We're going to start providing this accommodation. It's something where the team needs to be in consent with that. And so in the case where a parent disagrees, the student stays in their current placement until some type of resolution is had. So procedural safeguards, these outline the rights that families have, the protections under IDEA. They have a right to participate in meetings, to access educational records. If they disagree with an assessment, they can request a private assessment, and that their consent's required to implement any changes to the IEP. The majority of disputes are resolved within the IEP team meeting. We had talked about that as an annual review. There are some cases where we might be meeting once a month or more frequently than that to try to resolve issues. And that's where most of the decisions are made. If a dispute persists, the district may choose to file due process to enforce what their opinion is. And so then there's a resolution process. And so I'm sure you're familiar, it would come to you if settlement agreements are made with families. If we're not able to agree, and this process here, is separate and apart from the FAPE process, the IEP process. This now becomes more of a legal proceeding of, well, we know what the school's offering, we know what the parents want, we know there's disagreement. This is a different path to talk about, is there another way that we can settle this disagreement? And if it can't be settled, then it's going through due process where a judge rules for or against either side. Okay, getting towards the end. Sorry I'm talking so much. So to revisit the least restrictive environment, again, to the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities are educated with children who are not disabled. And that the removal of children with disabilities from the regular educational environment only occurs when the nature or severity of the disability of a student, such as the education in regular classes with the use of aids, cannot be achieved satisfactorily. So I wanted to share one court case with you, and this is a student, Rachel. So she went to her school district, they did the assessments, determined that she was eligible for services, and recommended, went through the whole IEP, talked about the deficits, made goals, talked about services, and determined we're going to serve you in our special day classroom. So this is, separate setting, all the students in that room have an IEP. And their reasoning was, in this special setting, we can be very diagnostic with the interventions that we're giving to you. There's lots of adults in here. Rachel can, and I'm paraphrasing some of this, but there can be one-to-one support, or she can work in small groups. The whole room's set up to meet with sensory needs. Speech comes in and runs groups. And so the district, it was a well-intended offer where they were looking at this student can make the most progress if we put her in this type of setting. The parents disagreed. No, we want general education setting for the whole day. The case was ruled on, and the judge sided with the family, saying that no, the general education is an appropriate setting for her. It was appealed, and the judge affirmed the previous decision, saying that general education was the appropriate placement for her. He highlighted that the social benefit of her being with her peers, that in that setting, she could still make progress on her goals, even though she wasn't at grade level, was not working on the same things as the other students in the class. Per her IEP progress, she's making progress in her goals. So from that student lens, she had some educational access where she could make progress, and she had access to her peers. So that's the least restrictive environment. That's what's appropriate.
It's interesting. They make it sound so great. Hey, this one student, really succeeding, but when they're burning down the rest of the classroom, I think it's being missed. It's interesting. One of the major airlines about 20 years ago was making a lot of top-down decisions. And the president's like, our passengers are not real happy. We're giving direct authority to the flight attendants. And they turned around customer satisfaction within 2 months. And I'm thinking that we almost need to give more direct authority to the classroom teachers, as opposed to making decisions up here, because the classroom teachers are interacting with them every day. I think they really need to be brought in more to exactly what needs to be done to make faster decisions. Because I would say that our district has pretty significant special ed problems, and that's why we're having this presentation tonight.
Okay. I mean, most of the accountability in terms of student decisions is made with the teachers and, site administrators. So when it's top down, I think that's not so much how we drive student placement and progress. It's looking at the IEP team members and getting their insight. Like, for me, for example, if I'm not a part of an IEP team, I'm not making decisions to change something. I can consult and give advice, and we give feedback and kind of get together. But there's not, in terms of student placement, it's not okay, we're sorting out, you go here and here. It's based on the IEP team. So looking at what's come to be known as the Rachel H factors, this is what the judge ultimately ruled on, why this placement was appropriate. And it's what we've been talking about all night. Looking at the educational benefit of a regular classroom, looking at the non-academic benefits of that setting, and then to the point of many of the questions tonight, also considering the impact the student with disabilities has on the teacher and other children in the classroom. And then finally, point number 4 is a consideration, but it's not one that we would talk about in an IEP meeting, because it's not, I don't know the word, it's not necessarily appropriate or professional, but considering the cost of the supplementary aids to be able to implement those services. So kind of going back, when we're talking about a change in placement, when we're addressing those concerns that you say where there might be a problem with the environment as a class as a whole, these are really the main talking points, those first three.
Dr. Owen, can I ask a quick follow-up question? What would happen if, like, say, an assistant principal or a principal came to to you and said, we need to remove student X because it's impacting the learning environment for the rest of the other students, and unilaterally change placement without going through the IEP process or change of placement meeting? Well, what would happen in that scenario?
I mean, we'd have a very negative outcome from our behalf. That's not necessarily a decision that we'd be able to stand behind if it's a decision outside of an IEP meeting. Because as you saw kind of in those first slides, any decision, it needs to be evident about why the school's recommending something. When a judge goes through a case and he's just connecting the dots like we did at the start, where is this student now? What are the goals you have? What are the services? That decides where the placement needs to be. If there are changes or decisions made without sufficient data, then we're compromised, because how do we know this? As an expert, what are we considering? And so in a case like that, I mean, it's difficult and we deal with it a lot, but it's going back to the table to know we can't make a unilateral change. How do we address this with the family, with the IEP team, in a way that we can kind of hopefully get everyone on the same page to make the next step?
I understand it puts us at risk for sure for lawsuits. I think one of the things that I would love to see, and I think from what I've heard from parents, is that the speed at which we try to make the adjustments is faster. You know, I was talking to Dr. Good about this. He's like, there's a very specific path that needs to be done, and that it's just a matter of, well, how fast can we get that done?
Yeah, that's a fair comment. Anything else?
Hey, Bob, are we, so, okay, continue.
Thank you, David.
No, I was wondering if you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, so I can come out of audio detention and if I have questions, ask them?
Though.
Yeah, it's clear now, whatever you did.
Okay. No, thank the IT, they helped me.
Okay, good job, IT guys.
All right, to wrap up here, we spend, again, because special education law and everything, how it stems from those two components, FAPE and LRE, that's how we think about a lot of our issues. And when we're thinking about issues, it's always through the lens of, what does this student need? How can they get access? And so the state monitors 14 different indicators, essentially to look at how we are implementing special education services. 3 of those, one is for younger students, it's not relevant, but so 2 of them are directly tied to LRE numbers. And so this is a little confusing, I'm happy to repeat it, but this first state goal that we're looking at are aimed at those students who are mild to moderate disabilities. Excuse me. And the expectation is that 62% of our students on IEPs are in the general education setting for 80% of their week or more. So again, that's about 2/3 of our students' IEPs should reflect that they're in the gen ed setting for 80% or more. Really quick, just because we're on that one. Here are our numbers over the last 3 years. This is a target that we have not met. So this is something that the state that we're continually trying to improve in terms of looking at the amount of students who are in the gen ed setting for more than 80% of their day.
8 prescribed this percentage, and when did they prescribe this percentage? Was that a state? Was it passed a long time ago? Recently?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. My guess is that it's when IDEA was reauthorized, that it came out years and years ago. I mean, this is something that I've been looking at for 13 years for me personally.
So they mandate this percentage?
So yes, it's one of the indicators that if you're not meeting it, then you're not, your special education data is not compliant essentially with state expectations.
Does that impact funding?
It can if it's a pervasive problem and lasts for a number of years. In terms of the progress that we're making, they haven't elevated our status or our level to saying that we need a different kind of assistance or that they would change funds. So
they mandate this, but they don't necessarily give you the funding you need to make that, to actually realize that percentage increase.
That's fair, yeah.
Okay. Because you're never going to get to that without more money, a lot more money to be able to do what we need to do to achieve that. So they're going to mandate it, and then good luck. And then if you dare write it in your LCAP, because that might be a great way to fund it, well, then you're screwed. So very frustrating. You know, Bob has his issues with the state. Well, I have my issues with the state, and this is one of them that's been bothering me since I've been on this board, and it's not gotten better. It's getting worse and worse every year, and it's unfortunate what the state is choosing to focus money on, and this should be a very high priority, and it's not, and it makes me very upset. So that's all.
Also, hey, Christy, you can include me into that group too. I have my frustrations also.
It's also a number that doesn't seem to mean anything, right? Because they have no idea what the population is of our area or anything. So, I mean, out of curiosity, do you know anything about this 62% number and where it comes from? And
I do not. I know that it's increased over time. So it is a target that's moving higher.
Increased over time.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting that, I mean, it goes back to the least restrictive, I would assume. They're thinking that, you know, thank you, that they're really trying to help the kids be in the least restrictive, and at the same time, they're just not providing the resources like Christy said. I actually go to a church that has an entire ministry. We have like 20 kids with special needs in our church services, and so very familiar with that, and a lot of them have talked about the support they do and do not get in public systems. So, you know, the reason why we have you here tonight, and we appreciate you being here, is the fact that we're taking a very huge focus on this. And so I know you have a new position and a lot's going to be required. So thank you.
Yeah, I like the attention. And I will say, there's no special ed director that's gone in front of a board and has left with the, you know, everyone saying enthusiastically, oh yeah.
David?
Yeah, I was going to say, we appreciate you, your time tonight. I was just going to say, I can tell you a lot of special needs instructors, instructor aides are very grounded people, and they love their kids. My wife works in elementary school as an instructor, special ed instructor aide, and she loves her job. She has a passion for it. And also, I wanted to share, you know, my nephew is highly functioning autism, and he graduated with honors in math from EUHSD. And he works for our company now, and our clients absolutely loves him, both his work and personally. But he came a long way, especially going through special education classes. And now he's a valuable professional, and we're very proud of him.
That's a great story.
So there's a lot of benefits to having these classes, but they have to be funded appropriately.
Yes, agreed. And so, you know, we've tackled pretty hard professional development over the last 2 years, at really building up the skill set of teachers, of our program managers. We're doing a lot of work with the elementary district and looking at how they transition students into our programs. We found that, so if you look at the numbers, and I know the numbers are somewhat arbitrary, but 80%, but if a student's in 2 SAI classes, then they're automatically below this mark. And so what we found a trend over years was the middle school, you know, oh, it's the big bad high school, that's a scary world, put them in the most supported classes. And so we've done a lot of professional development with them also in really being clear about what our programs are and them understanding potential negative effects. And so, you know, it's something that we're working and striving towards. I think I'm not going to go over the 40%. That's not really relevant, I think, to where our conversation was. But that's something that our Mod Severe programs are doing a lot of strategic planning, and they're coming along well.
I think that this overall presentation was very helpful to understand special education. One thing I think I'd like to see in the future when we tie some of these other things together is what your vision is for special ed in the coming, 25, 26 year. What changes do you want to see? What do you think you could use for additional funds, teachers, things like that. So I think this was a good overview of special ed in general, but I think that I'd love to see, and I think David and Christy would agree with that, and Ryan and Bill, that we'd really like to see a very specific presentation on our district and what our, kind of like what your goals are to make some changes in the future, especially in the areas of safety.
Yes, I agree. Where do we go from here?
Well, I appreciate that attitude because, a lot of times it's special education. You're costly, go do your thing. So I appreciate that communication.
You have anything?
My question is,
go ahead,
to
David.
Bob's point, where do we go from here? What's the plan?
Certainly. So we have a number of different factors that we're looking at. A lot of it revolves around professional development. A lot of it is opening communication amongst our service providers. In talking about site level teams making decisions, this was the first year that we sat down and our Mod Severe teachers looked at all the incoming 8th graders and they worked as teams to determine where the placement was. So I think that that's really about informing our staff about what best practices are and then giving them the forum to be able to communicate with each other and plan. That's the most immediate and succinct thing because I think that there's a lot of growth that we can make in those areas.
I don't want to put you on the spot or anything like that, but we should be looking at safety also. I think we need a plan for safety. And, we got to make sure that our kids are very well taken care of and that we have a clearly laid out plan to make sure that there's low risk associated with the classes and that there's good oversight.
Understood.
All right, so we've been going for about 2.5 hours here. I do want to get public comment though in before we, and so thank you so much because I can understand if you need to go, but I wanted to get some public comment in before you did take off. So for public comment, we have this one will be request to speak on a specific agenda item as it relates to special education. And so this is the script I'm supposed to read to keep us out of trouble. For public comments related to an item on the agenda, the board will hear comments directly following staff presentation. The board will limit total time for public input on each agenda to 20 minutes. Generally, each person may speak for up to 3 minutes. At board discretion, in order to allow all persons to have an opportunity to participate if desired, the board may reduce the amount of time per speaker when necessary. Following public comment, the board will entertain a motion and a second and then convene discussion on the item. Public comments not related to an item on the agenda will be shared during the public comment section. So I would, at this time, I call Maria Nielsen to speak. Oh, thanks. Hold on, Maria, I don't think your mic's on or you're not speaking into it.
Hello?
There you go.
There you go.
You could probably just hold it if you can.
Can you hear me now?
Good, thank you.
Okay. So my name is Maria Nielsen, and I have been working for this district for the past 7 years. I'm a special education teacher now. I've been teaching for the last 2.5 years, and I teach students with extensive support needs at Orange Glen High School. It is an honor to hold my position, and I cannot imagine doing anything else. I love my students and my classroom. This year, I began teaching at Orange Glen High School, and I was excited to take over a fantastic program previously run by Courtney Coffin. She had built a strong classroom foundation, and I knew the expectations for this classroom were high. I love challenges, and I knew that I would do my best to continue what Courtney had created. However, some challenges are unreasonable, and I was soon faced with an unreasonable safety concern by one student. This issue made it hard or impossible to implement important activities in the classroom like community outings and student participation in elective classes. When I raised my safety concern with my supervisors, I felt ignored, and I was simply instructed to keep the student isolated with his one-on-one aide. Unfortunately, that one-on-one aide soon got injured, and instead of hiring additional support for our students, they reassigned my strongest aide to assist that particular student. To make matters worse, I lost another aide to a different position that offered a better pay, leaving me ill-equipped to teach how I wanted to and how my students needed me to. Over the past 5 months, everything changed. When one of my students' parents came into the district and made us think about the lack of aides and safety issue. To that parent, thank you. My question to advocating for our classroom to prompt change when my team and I have been voicing our safety concerns for the past 6 months. Why is classroom safety not prioritized over integration, especially when I have students who are terrified and not attending class due to their fears? Why are we dumping students with high behaviors into classes where they don't belong in the name of integration and least restrictive environment? I'm here because I fully support integration when students can thrive in that setting. However, when a student is unable to integrate, all the resources tend to be directed towards that one individual. I'm urging you to consider a different approach to student integration. What has occurred in my classroom is contrary to what integration looks like or it's intended to be. Lastly, many of my staff and students could have been unnecessarily harmed if the student had been placed in a more appropriate learning environment, or if my initial concerns had been seriously taken. In the end, that is what he deserves, not to be confined in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Nielsen. So that concludes section where did we leave off? D4. Depending on how we're doing, I was going to take a 5-minute break, but I wanted to have some continuity with the public speakers. Let me just add.
Can I make one more comment before
please.
we just finalize this? Because as Maria was speaking, something came to me. It's just, I feel like there is an extreme level of, and I don't know if fear is the right word, but it feels like there's such a fear around making the wrong decision when it comes to placement, and this subjective definition of least restrictive environment that nobody, at least the sense I'm getting, is it doesn't feel like anyone's empowered in their role to make these decisions, and that there's an incredible amount of fear because of lawsuits and safety issues. So I really want to address that so that people in this profession feel empowered in what they're doing and in serving the students, rather than coming from a place of fear with the decisions because of whatever repercussions will come afterwards. So I hope we can get to that place. I have a lot of empathy for the current state of special education across our entire state of California. So thank you for what you do, all of you. That's all.
Yeah,
And
to
we
add
could
to
use-
that, Trustee Knight, it's interesting. It's sort of like in my field with underwriting. The underwriters can only make a bad decision. They don't get credit for the millions of loans that they approve when people make their payments. But if they make a bad decision on 4 or 5 loans, they get fired. And I'm thinking that there's got to be a way to work both locally and at the state level where we can bring the attention to that so that, you know, we do what's best and safe for the kids and give us a little bit more control. So that's something that if I get elected to the CSBA, I will be pressing. Any other comments on this D4 item? All right. So as it relates right now, it's 8:20. I think we can squeeze in the comment section, but first I just want to see if there is a report, public comment from the California School Employees Association. Is anybody here for that speak? How about from the Escondido Secondary Teachers Association? Anybody here to speak? Okay, since nobody's here to speak on that, we can go to public comment on non-agendized topic that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. I'm to read this as well. The board shall limit the total time for public input into each non-agenda topic to 20 minutes. Generally, each person may speak for up to 3 minutes at board discretion in order to allow all persons to have an opportunity to participate. If desired, the board may reduce the amount of time per speaker when necessary. Upon conclusion of all public comments, or 30 minutes, the board will continue to the next item of business on the agenda in order to ensure the board can effectively and efficiently conduct the district's business in public at this meeting. In the event more time is needed for public comments on non-agendized items, which is what we're about to do, to ensure that all those wishing to address the board have an opportunity to do so, the remaining public comments will be heard at agenda item J1, which doesn't look like we'll have that need tonight. The Board of Education is prohibited by law from taking action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda, and the board looks forward to and encourages your participation. We have received 3 cards from people who wish to make public comment during this meeting. So the first person we'll call is Abigail Garrison. You can tap it and see if it's working. Is it? David, whatever you were struggling with, sent it overseas here.
Okay, yeah, there we go.
There we go.
To you all, and thank you for this opportunity. Drama program at my school. I care very much about the people and state of the program. Curricular not counted as a class, but it's class. Unfortunately, though, not like considered that kind of thing. And speaking to teachers, and they mentioned a possible lack of tutorial in the future if an issue with the union contract continues. And I just thought I'd come here to say my piece about that. As I said, stuff like tutorial could be affected if issues with the union contract continue, and teachers, they're really doing their best to help students. Clubs and tutorial are really good extra resources for helping students feel supported, seen, and sometimes students would rather be at school than home with various issues involved. Teachers would devote a lot of time for their own the betterment of their students. I think that's a really good goal, and I think if the path the board continues on as is, things could get canceled, which I'd rather not, because I know a lot of people who really need that support. and it would really be sad if they didn't get the support they needed. I understand this is a very complicated issue, and I really don't understand it fully. However, teachers are pillars of our community, and resources and money would be well spent going towards their efforts to help. And I'm not a parent, I'm not a teacher, but I know that kids like me are the future of our education, and understanding of important topics like science and English are worth the complications. I hope you as the board will take my words into consideration, and you'll consider being lenient with the union. Teachers are the best of us, and we all know teenagers are some of the most difficult people to work with in life. Thank you for your time.
Abigail, can I ask one clarification point? So you're recommending that we have more effort into tutorial. Is that what I'm understanding?
More effort into like talking to the union about the contract renewal and stuff.
So can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
Abigail, if I heard you correctly, you indicated that a teacher told you that the tutorial class would be impacted or perhaps shut down if negotiations did not go a certain way?
Yeah, because it's not included technically in their contract. Like,
so
it's a
they provide tutorial as a benefit to the students?
Yes, it's used so students have support after school. Like, one of my teachers has a tutorial that after school goes till about 5:30, just helping with like math stuff. It's for so students just can get that extra little bit of support if they don't understand during class.
Oh yeah, no, it sounds incredible. I guess I just want another clarifying point. Can I understand if a teacher told you this one-on-one, or if this was something that was said to the entire class?
It was kind of spoken about outside of class. Like, I was talking to a teacher about it, and they mentioned it.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and speaking to us.
Thank you.
Dr. Casas?
Yeah, and I can't speak for whatever teacher said, but I suspect that this could be tied to a labor action working to the rule. So as negotiations progress or don't progress, they could like not period sub because it's not part of the contract, or do after school activities. So that was probably related to that.
I'm just a little taken back that this was shared with a student in a way where a student might not really understand, but yet they come down speaking because of course, your concern is that these opportunities would be taken away from the students. And I guess I'm just really taken back that it was said in that way and shared with you in that way. And quite frankly, I'm going to apologize for that, because I don't want to hear of threats being made or certain things being said to students in a way where there is a fear from students that they won't have the support they need from our teachers.
Due to the contract bargaining.
And again, I feel like that was not fair to be said to students, and I'm making that very clear.
We're totally on your side, Abigail. No,
thank you, Abigail.
You did a great job bringing this forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. You were very articulate and very helpful. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. And thank your dad for coming. All right. So then we have, I think, do we need an interpreter? Yes. Okay. So the next one is Dahlia Atibe, and we do need an interpreter for her.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Dani.
Hola.
Tengo un hijo de 16 años en la Orange Glen con necesidades especiales, autismo y epilepsia.
My name is Dalia. I have he's a special education student with epilepsy and autism.
Al inicio del ciclo escolar, en el salón de clase de mi hijo hubo un incidente, el cual yo reporté a la escuela con el director de la escuela, una IP de emergencia por el incidente que había sucedido dentro del salón de clase.
At the start of the school year, there was an incident inside the classroom, which I reported to the school principal, and I called for a special IEP to be processed.
A lo cual hasta el momento no me han dado respuesta sobre ese incidente que ocurrió dentro del salón de clase. Un alumno más grande que mi niño intentó agredirlo.
Up until this day, they haven't told me what happened in that incident. There was another student older than him that tried to attack him.
Eso pasó al inicio del ciclo escolar. Ahorita ya ha escalado más el incidente con este niño, al grado que mi hijo le teme y todos los días él llega a casa con miedo, expresando de alguna manera con su iPad el miedo que le tiene a ese alumno.
This started at the start of this happened at the start of the school year, and up until this point, this problem has only escalated to the point where he gets home and he's in fear, constant fear, and he expresses with his iPad that he doesn't want to attend school anymore.
Hasta ese momento mi hijo ya no quiere asistir a la escuela. Ya lleva semanas diciéndome que él ya no quiere ir a la escuela.
To this point, he doesn't want to go to school anymore. He hasn't been to school for weeks, and he tells me that he doesn't want to go back to school.
Y hoy vengo con ustedes para que tomen cartas en el asunto, porque no creo que todos los niños tienen derecho a la educación y mi hijo necesita estar en un salón de clase.
So I'm here today to ask for you to do something, because every kid deserves to go to school. He has the right to go to school, and he needs to go back.
Mi hijo estas últimas 3 semanas ha asistido a la escuela y en cuanto ese niño está dentro del salón de clase, él permanece afuera. Creo que eso es injusto.
My has been in school for the past 3 weeks, and every time he goes to school, this other kid is in class and he has to stay outside, which I don't think is fair.
Hoy vengo con ustedes para que tomen carta en el asunto y espero respuesta. Gracias.
Today I'm here for you to do something, and I hope I get an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dahlia, so much for coming and speaking out. You were heard tonight, so can you translate that to her, that she was definitely heard? And we will follow up as a board for sure. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so then the third and final speaker for this part will be Krista Reed, please.
Me? Okay. Hi, my name's Crystal Reed. My son's in special education at Orange Glen High School. I'm here tonight to speak about classroom safety in special education. My son and 9 other students have been attacked, bitten, and terrorized by a single student since August of 2024. Myself and other parents have pled for 6 months to the school principal, vice principal, the old on-site program specialist, Caitlin Alto, the director of special education, Dr. Jeremy Owen, and the director of interventions and safety, Dr. Oscar Felix, just to try to find a solution for our children to have a safe learning environment. No changes have ever been made. Our classroom is unsafe and has been severely understaffed. So much so, the 7 goals set forth in my son's IEP worked on adequate staffing support in the classroom. I have a copy of his most recent annual goals and a copy of his IEP. In order to get our voices heard, I reached out to Board President Bob Weller, who's the first person to listen and to share in our fresh and Dr. Casas, 3 weeks correct ratio of aids to students. Thank you, Dr. Good. Dr. Casas has stayed in communication and there are protocols and meetings that have to Special Education Department has allowed violence in my son's classroom for 6 months and changes. Superintendent's message on the website. 6 months of this is absolutely atrocious. Fair and appropriate public education and I hope to see some positive changes. There are also
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. Any clarification questions? Well, go ahead.
Only question would be is are you familiar with Dahlia, and is this the same class?
Her son Alex, special education, that wanted to come tonight, but other parents in our classroom as well. We're actually in Maria Nilsson's class, and she's awesome.
Do you mind if I ask a question? How long has this been going on for?
And attacked by this student the first time on August 19th. IEP that I have concern. IEP, sharing that with you.
All right, Mrs. Reed, thank you so much. And you were heard tonight and action will be taken.
Thank you very much.
So it is 8:40. We do have quite a bit still to do. So I'd like to do a brief 5-minute recess, and we'll meet back here in about 5 minutes. Thank you. You want to. All righty. Welcome back. It's now 8:48, and we're going to reconvene the meeting. So just Cadence, just so you know, you have permission to leave at any point.
9:30 is my limit.
9:30 is your bedtime? Okay. All right. Well, at 9:30, you're free to go. Yeah, the rest of us want to go at 9:30 too. Section E, public comment. Let's see, we did that. So we're down to section F. So we're down to the area where the asterisks are all on the consent item. So then in section F, items number 1, 2 have been already approved on consent. So we're going to deal with now F3, the mid-year LCAP progress report. And who gets that? Okay, Dr. Casas, thank you.
Thank you, President Weller. As a reminder, last month we presented on the previous year 23-24 LCAP goals. And this happens in January because in December is when the state authenticates the previous year results in the dashboard. This report is different. This is a mid-year progress report in this current academic year. And it gives an update on how we're doing in our actions and services and expenditure by goal. This is a state compliance mid-year report that's 62 pages long. Most of the data revolves around semester 1 grades, attendance, but some of the other things are hard to determine because, as you know, a lot of our other measures are state assessments and national AP exams and graduation rates, which don't happen until the end of the year.
Anybody have any questions on this? I have one, but I'm going to open it up for people to speak.
Okay, so you mentioned the majority of it is year-end data. What data is actually here that you have measurable indicators on?
Yeah, like I said, semester 1 grades. So students receive progress reports at 6, 12, and 18 weeks. So a lot of our grade data is the 18-week grade data, which is semester 1. District-wide, what we refer to as our A through C rate, the percentage of grades that are A through Cs, is about 1.2% higher than previous years. That's an indicator to graduation rate, A through G completion, should be also an indicator to achievement assessments in AP exams. You'll also see Renaissance assessment completion data. At the time of print, we were still completing our second assessment district-wide in mathematics, so some of that data is incomplete. But mainly you're looking at attendance and grades, because those are the main indicators for everything else.
So this question I'm about to ask Dr. Casas is more like, okay, I honestly don't understand 95% of this, and the superintendent and I were talking about it before, and he's like, well, that's okay, most board members don't. Item number 115, I'm just, section 1, item 15. I just picked that out randomly, so, page 8 of 62. It's pretty fast, Amanda. Okay, so just to kind of ease us in a little bit. So it says here in the first column, the metric, increase the percentage of students completing a broad course of study by the end of their senior year. Increase the percent of unduplicated students and students with exceptional needs completing 3 years of social science by the end of their senior year by 1% annually, 2% to close the achievement gap. I'll just stop there. So let me just ask you a question. Like, so is 115, like, do all the schools around the state have a 1.15 and they have those words in the metric?
I'd like to say that we're super innovative in everything that we do, but probably 80% of our goals are borrowed from other LCAP reports that are very similar across the state.
That's okay. This thing is so foreign. I'm trying to get my head around it.
And I'll just add, broad course of study is also part of the dashboard measures, so it's something that we have to include.
Say that one more time.
California dashboard actually measures a broad course of study.
Got it. So when it says with exceptional needs, what does that mean?
Students with special needs or students with IEPs.
Aha. Okay. And then where it breaks down baseline, it breaks it down by ethnicity. And so, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just not ethnicity. It's also English language learner, reclassified English proficient, special ed, foster youth, homeless. We have to break that down when we make this report.
So I know the state asks that we break everything down, and I don't know if you can answer this or if you even want to answer it. So if you're like, no, I'm not going to comment on that. But like, it seems like all the breakdowns, it doesn't really help. You know, like our district is 95% Hispanic or 90% as this says here. Like, why do we need to know every detail of a person's ethnicity to try to improve grades?
I mean, I'll leave that for someone else to answer, but we have to report this in the dashboard.
Okay, hey, I'm bringing up tough questions that I know that people ask me, so I appreciate your answer on that. So I'm totally not playing any games here, trying to, back you into a corner by any means. So then if we go over to the far right column, desired outcome for 26-27, so it says here on 1.15, at least 1% increase each year, 2% to close the achievement gap from the 22-23, and then 25-26 overall 93.7. Could you kind of summarize that a little bit? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of our goals reference the previous year metric, and we want to, so the previous year, if it's 1%, then we would have been at 92.7. So our goal is to increase 1% to 93.7.
So
students that by their senior year met a broad course of study.
Okay, so when it says 25-26 overall 93.7, that relates to the metric that 93.7% of the students are achieving the 1 to 2% increase. I'm a little lost. I'm so sorry. And
so overall last year, 92.7 of our seniors graduated with a broad course of study as defined by the state.
Okay.
Our goal for for 25-26 is by the time those seniors graduate, that 93.7 of that class will graduate with a broad course of study as defined by the state.
Okay. Thank you so much. I know you guys didn't write this and you're not required, but I can tell you this thing makes me mad. This is like, it's like you guys know what our kids need and the state runs us around in circles with this stupid thing. So I can say that. Christy set a good example for me, so I appreciate that. All right. So there's no action on this. This is an information item. So thank you so much for that. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we'll go to F4 now, action upon recommended expulsion of accused student for case number 3. So I'm going to need a motion to accept and approve the recommended expulsion of the accused student for case number 3 from February 11th, 2025 through at least February 12th, 2026, and to accept and approve the stipulated expulsion agreement.
Yes, I move to accept and approve the recommended expulsion of the accused student for case number 3 from February 11th, 2025 through at least February 12th, 2026, and to accept and approve the stipulated expulsion agreement.
Nice second.
All right, thank you. We will be doing a roll call vote. Student board members will not be called upon on this. So we'll go first to Trustee Vincent. Yay or nay, David?
Yay.
Thank you. And to Trustee Knight.
Aye.
Gurney.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Myself is aye. So that roll call vote is completed. We're going to move down to the Human Resources Department, which I know is Dr. Good. I've got my wheels under me again. So we know that items 1 and 2 were approved on consent. So we'll now go to item number 3. And there is an action item for this, and it is a motion to approve the proclamation for School Social Work Week to be celebrated from March 2nd to March 8th, 2025.
So moved.
Dr. Good, did you want to say anything about that?
I could lead into it if you would like a little
Sure,
bit.
go for it.
Perfect. Pleased to bring forward for your approval the proclamation in recognition the important role our school social workers play in the lives of our students, families, and the community. As you had mentioned, President Weller, this proclamation designates the week of March 2nd as National School Social Worker Week. While it's it's an important recognition that acknowledges the critical role that they play. I think it really can be best summarized with a line directly from the proclamation. School social workers serve as vital members of a school's education team, playing a central role in creating partnerships between the home, school, and community to ensure student academic success. I can't imagine a more noble call-in than to help those who are struggling find success in life and in school. Happy to present this proclamation for the board's approval.
Thank you, Dr. Good. We do have a motion here again. It will be a roll call vote. This time we will call on student board members. So student board member Cadence Forby, how do you vote?
Aye.
Trustee Vincent?
Aye.
Trustee Knight?
Aye.
Trustee Durney?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
And I, Bob Weller, vote aye. That passes unanimously. So thank you. Dr. Good, why don't you discuss Human Resources Division item number 4?
Sure. This is an information item. This is the initial proposal from CSEA and it's Chapter 219. This is the last year of a 3-year contract with CSEA. These are the articles that CSEA is wishing to reopen and negotiate with the district. Article 11, wages. Article 7, insurance benefits. Be a public hearing next month, and then begin negotiations in short order with CSEA after that. Again, this is just an info item.
I have a question on that. Is the insurance benefits negotiated under the same contract as ESTA, or is it different insurance benefits?
No, we're all housed under VIBA.
Yeah.
But there are different rates between the two associations just based on differences in the setup of their contributions over time.
Well, I can tell you, I appreciate being covered under our insurance. So whatever you guys are doing to negotiate it, it's been very helpful for a family of 6 not to be buried with insurance costs. So thank you for doing that. All right, we will move on to item G5. Dr. Good.
Similar to the last info item, again, another info item. This is our initial proposal to CSEA in its Chapter 219 for the final year of our 3-year contract. We're simply mirroring CSEA, opening again for negotiation, salary and benefits only, forgoing our right to open a 3rd article in line with CSEA, forgoing that as well.
Do you think you'll be able to negotiate a 3rd year or another 3-year contract, or is that something you cannot state out here?
That wouldn't really be for this year. That'll come up next year when the entire contract is open.
Well, that's great. I'm glad that you guys are able to come to an agreement on a 3-year contract. I hope other unions that we negotiate with will see their ability to do that. Going on to Section H, Business Services Division. And here again, we have some that were approved under consent. Items H1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 were all approved under consent. I heard cheers to my left on that one. Mrs. Phillips, is there anything from that section that you need to say on, or no? Okay, so then if I go to I1 here, this is a action item. It's need a motion to cast ballot for representative for the 2025 California School Board Association Delegate Assembly. What?
I would make a motion to put forward 2 names that I would recommend, and then I guess we could open it up to others. But the 2 names I would like to put forward would be Bob Weller with the Escondido Union High School District, and Barbara Ryan, who has been an incredibly long-standing community member serving the community of Santee on that school board for I don't know how many years, but I would strongly support Barbara Ryan as well.
Thank you, Trustee Knight.
And I would agree with both of those. I would also add to that Cipriano Vargas, representing North County. I'd also put Jane Lee Smith, representing North County. Elva Lopez Zapita from Sweetwater Union High School, representing a high school district. And then Zenaida Rosario. I just really loved everything I read about her, and she had a lot of support.
Okay, that's great. That's 6. Ryan, do you have any thoughts on that?
You know, it's something like this, I much would prefer to know the person, so I'm not going to comment on any of the list other than that last one. Not sure who he is. No, Bob Weller, for sure.
Okay, very good. And then David Vincent, do you have any thoughts or comments?
I'm with Ryan. I don't really know any of these other candidates except for this guy. So I'm going to go with him.
So I probably need a little help on this because I definitely have to recuse myself for all intents and purposes. So Yeah, go
I
ahead.
don't see the need necessarily to put forward 6 names, and out of respect for those that don't know these other people, I'm happy putting forward simply Bob Weller's name. I am confident Barbara Ryan will be appointed to that seat, so I'm fine with putting forward just Bob Weller's name. So I could,
I will delegate you to deal
I
with
guess
the
I would
motion and
amend
I'll-
my motion to, because the requirement does not require you to vote for 6, that the vote would be simply for our fellow board member to represent the Escondido Union High School District.
We would need a second on that to accept the amendment.
I second.
All right, so then, although I will in fact call for the roll call vote, I will not be voting.
Because the amendment, the motion was amended, you should ask for further discussion.
Okay.
Do
Is there any further discussion? Thank you,
further
John.
discussion?
I'm comfortable with voting for all 6 based on what I've been able to read and understanding about them, but I understand you guys want to do, I understand, so. Just, that's all.
Thank you, Bill, for understanding. David, did you have any comment?
No, sir. I have to say, I don't know these individuals. What I read, I feel very much comfortable in just going with Bob Weller, our president.
Well, okay, thank you. So we will now have a roll call vote. And so for student board members, aye or nay, and that would be Cadence Forby. How do you vote?
Aye.
And then David Vincent,
Aye.
Christy Knight,
Aye.
Bill Durney,
Nay.
Ryan Williams.
Aye.
Well, the motion carries, and I'm devastated that I didn't get unanimous.
We didn't get your vote.
Oh, am I allowed to vote?
Yes.
Okay, aye. Okay, then it's 5-1, so that vote carries.
Four to one.
Thank you. 4-1 still carries. Thank you. And Bill and I are still friends. I know it wasn't. So then we move on to district operations I2. Here again, it's been a roll call vote, recommended action regarding adopt a motion, recommended revisions in administrative regulation 3311 and 3311.1. Before we ask for a motion on this, do I give it to Superintendent? Is that for you?
Sure. And I will delegate it to Amanda Phillips.
Oh, okay, there we go.
So this is a second read, so there were no changes since the last board meeting. These were just small revisions in the values for our bids that have been updated.
Very good. Can we have a motion in a second, please?
Motion to approve? Motion
Second.
to adopt, excuse me.
Very good. Thank you for that. And first, we're going to ask student board members to
clarify,
Oh,
we
yeah.
have was it seconded as well?
Second.
Okay.
Thank you. So then we have student board member Cadence Forby. How do you vote?
Aye.
David Vincent,
Aye.
Christy Knight,
Aye.
Bill Durney,
Aye.
Ryan Williams,
Aye.
and myself, Bob Weller, as aye. So that is approved. And thank you, Superintendent, for helping us rewrite things and get things in order. Thank you, Amanda. So then we're in district operations item I3. Here again, this is just a first reading, so no roll call vote is going to be taken. Should I give this off to Mrs. Phillips to? Okay, it's all yours.
Thank you. So like you said, you have a first read tonight. These are just revisions based on CSBA language for general obligation bonds. These are just old. They're from 2013. So we thought it was time with CSBA's recommendations to update them. Since we're also going through our long-term facility master plan, we let them review the language and they only made one minor recommendation that was CSBA recommendation, and it is in the BP. And you'll see it under the bonds requiring 55% approval by local voters. Number 1, they added the green language and anything that is not directly related to a school site but is necessary for school operations. So just to make it clear that if we wanted to improve maybe transportation or a maintenance building or things that maybe are not exactly a school site, we still have the ability to do so. And then that language is just repeated again in the 66.67% approval under bullet 11. So just for that clarity, under whichever type of bond we end up going for, that language is there. So that's the only non-CSBA language in both the BP and the AR. For your reading pleasure.
Thank you. Are you thinking that based on what you're seeing with the facilities and everything in the district, that there will be any needs going forward for some bonds in the future here?
Anything is possible in the future.
Okay. Any other questions on that? All right. So that moves us down to I4, board member reports. And so we'll start with David Vincent, since he's already in tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm in the future. So first thing I want to say congratulations to one of our board members, cabinet members, I should say. Amanda, congratulations on your ACSA Administrator of the Year Award. Well done. Also, I was very impressed with both presentations today. And just to let you know, PPT means presentations, PowerPoint presentations. And the CTE program, I'm very impressed. I'm very happy. I think Ryan and I are in alignment with that. We need to get some more healthcare courses in the program because they're much needed in the state of California. And the special needs safety, I think education, special education safety, I want to see an update on that as I request it. And I want to make sure that it covers some of the issues that we discussed today. So that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trustee Vincent. And Trustee Knight?
Just thank you. We had quite a full audience earlier this evening, and I know it's been a long night, so thank you to all that are still here. My comments will focus on my excitement for 8th grade night tomorrow night. Particularly, I will be at San Pasqual. I'm very excited to have my own student attend Escondido Union High School District next year. So for all the parents, I'll see you tomorrow night at San Pasqual 8th grade night. And that will conclude my report.
All right. Bill, you don't get to speak tonight. No, I'm kidding. Trustee Durney, your closing comments?
I'm not going to speak tonight.
Trustee Williams?
Yeah, the quality of my my thoughts here tends to deteriorate after 9 o'clock. So with that, I'll say thank you to all who are still here. Thank you all who came already, and appreciate all the work and the presentations for today. They were great.
Thank you. And I do not have a long speech tonight. I will say, though, that I know that everybody that spoke, the parents and teachers regarding the special ed department, I know that will be top priority. And I know that Superintendent Peterson will definitely get back to us immediately on updates on that. I also would like to say that I got a chance to go up to the CIF board on Friday and speak in front of them, because as a result of the executive action of the president to ban boys from being in girls' sports, I thought it was important to talk. The NCAA has also decided to follow the executive order where boys are not allowed in girls' sports, but CIF has dug their feet in, and I think it's dangerous, and I think it's just completely wrong that the state of California allows boys to compete in girls' sports. Girls haven't worked hard over all these years to get the rights. Title IX was for them, not for boys that think they are something else. And there's no hate in what I'm saying. I'm saying this to protect girls. So I look forward to the CIF coming around on this, and it was an honor to speak before them. And that concludes my speech for tonight. Superintendent.
We'll move on then to item I5, Superintendent's Report. Last week, we celebrated our amazing school counselors during National School Counseling Week. Thank you for all you do to support our students' academic, emotional, and career development. We also continue to celebrate Career Technical Education Month. In support of that, Escondido High School opened its doors to Rincon Middle School 8th graders last week for CTE Day. It was encouraging to see so many incoming students excited about attending high school in our district. Our LCAP survey has been shared with students, staff, families, and our community. We encourage everyone to complete the survey if they haven't done so already. I'd like to thank our dedicated staff for actively seeking feedback from all stakeholders, and I would like to thank our student board members for helping to facilitate our LCAP student forums. And I think, Cadence, you were doing Valley High School just today, right? Very good, thank you. I'd like to end my report on a similar vein that David Vincent had by congratulating Mrs. Amanda Phillips one more time for being selected as the 2025 AXA Administrator of the Year in the category of Business Services. This is a recognition for all of San Diego and Imperial counties. The recognition from the Association of California School Administrators highlights Amanda's exceptional leadership, dedication, and the positive impact that she has made in our district. I look forward to her formal recognition at the Honoring Our Own awards ceremony in May. And I hope everyone enjoys the upcoming 4-day weekend, as all schools and the District Service Center will be closed for President's Day this Friday, February 14th, and on Monday, February 17th. We will welcome students back on Tuesday, February 18th. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Item J1, are there any remaining public comments on non-agendized items?
Covered them all at the original public comment period.
All right, so then we are we going back to closed session or no?
No, we have concluded all of our business from closed session.
Home.
Excellent. At 9:36, we adjourn. Oh, there we go. 9:16.